Okay, we ready?
Everybody ready?
Okay, good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to your town board retreat. It is the board's retreat. This is your opportunity to receive valuable input from your staff on their thoughts and ideas to make the town of Waxhaw the best it can be. You are to be commended for putting yourself on the front lines of the battle for the town of Waxhaw's future. You have the unenviable position of determining how the town will meet its obligations for core services and also allocate very limited resources to other services that your constituents may want or demand. As a town, you have certain statutory requirements to provide basic services to meet the health, safety, and welfare of your citizens. These core services include law enforcement, fire protection, road maintenance, traffic administration, solid waste collection, and the ability to respond to natural disasters. You are also being requested to prioritize and fund a wide range of non-essential services that interest your citizens. Just as your citizens prioritize essential expenses in their personal budgets, local governments must focus their spending on these needs before considering additional projects. As stewards of the taxpayers' money, you must perform a balancing act between the core services and non-essential services. As you all know, taxpayer frustration is at an all-time high at the national, state, and local level. For years, the assumption was that your citizens desire quality government services and are willing to pay for them. That assumption is becoming more fragile, and as elected officials, you are being requested to define and prioritize the core services while determining which services are being demanded by a small to vocal minority versus services that provide more town-wide benefit. Couple this with inflation, staffing challenges, new laws and regulations, and limited resources, your challenges have never been at a higher level. There is one positive note, Tom, as you face these challenges. You have a wide variety of experts available to you. Each of your department heads have a vast array of knowledge in their field. They have spent a great deal of time preparing their presentations and will be requesting your consideration on capital items, projects, or policies that they feel will make the town of Waxhaw a better place to live, work, and play. Their requests will be numerous and expensive. The list you will see later today is not their personal preferences or pet projects. They are in the trenches every day with your constituents, and they have developed this list based on what they are hearing citizens request, as well as their expertise on what can make life easier for the residents of Waxhaw. For the first time, this list was developed as a team with the department heads and the assistant directors being involved in numerous discussions. What you will see and hear has the support of your staff leadership. The town cannot fund or engage in all of these requests. We do ask that you keep an open mind with a vision for the future of Waxhaw and imagine what Waxhaw could be. It is no secret there is discourse among the board, and reaching consensus on a lot of these issues may be difficult. When one reviews all of the minutes of your prior meetings, you quickly discover that the majority of decisions made by the board are actually unanimous. You can't agree on everything. As a way to reach consensus on issues, I'm asking that prior to your departure on Friday afternoon, I'm going to ask that you write down 7 items you'd like to see move forward. On the other side of the page, I would ask that you write down things you have no interest in or you would not like to see move forward. We hope once we get these items together, we can see where there is consensus. That will help staff when they develop their budgets. We can bring some of the other items back that we don't have consensus on, and you can have further discussions. But I expect there'll be several things you'll have consensus on, and that will help our staff as we move forward. So, you don't even have to sign your name to it. All we want is your 7 items, and on the other side of the page, all the items you don't want to see move forward. So, if you keep that in mind, and you can jot down as you go along over today and tomorrow, and hopefully you'll have that for me at the end of the day on Friday. And with all that being said, I can't ask for an amen. So, at this time, we'll move forward. On the agenda, the first item on the agenda is a transportation project update. And James, do we have DOT staff here this morning? So this time, Mayor, will.
Mr. Mayor and Mr. Town Manager Richard Hicks, I do have a motion to make to adjust the schedule for today, sir.
Okay.
The presentation for the implication of Senate Bill 382 at 3:15 today, I move to strike from the presentation for today. The reason I'm doing this is that I've spent a lot of time going through it, and I found that that presentation is, the way it's framed can be misleading, may create anti-property rights narrative rather than a neutral or fair characterization of the Senate bill. So with that, I make a motion to strike it from the agenda today.
Is this an official meeting? I don't think you can do that. I don't think we're voting on anything today. And this agenda has already been set.
Correct, but the presentation was received yesterday, and also I asked if the town clerk, is it possible to amend or change what is on the agenda for today's items moving forward?
No, I mean, you can't do that. We didn't open an official meeting here, so we're not voting on anything.
The town clerk.
If all of the board is present, then you are allowed to take official action.
We're allowed to take action. But
why would you?
The purpose of this meeting. The purpose of this meeting is not official legal action.
It's not official legal action, but you have the full board here, which is a quorum being present for a meeting that is held. So if there's a quorum, we are allowed to take action. Am I correct to Mr.
Yes,
Hicks?
But the purpose of this presentation is to inform the board. There are members of the board that'd be interested in learning a little bit more, so they'd be interested in hearing this presentation.
But if members of the board are not comfortable with the presentation, they do have the right to ask for it to be removed until a further date. Not to strike it completely, but to be removed until a further date, so that there can be both sides of the issue addressed at the same time.
If you wish not to see the presentation, you can certainly end your day earlier. There is no requirement to maintain a quorum at this meeting.
To the town manager, does this board have the right to ask for that presentation to be removed?
You have the right to take any action you deem appropriate.
There is a motion on the floor.
When the entire board is here.
I'd like to have a discussion about it. I don't see any harm in presenting information that our town attorney, our planning department have worked weeks to put together, considering that this bill was dropped on everyone's lap right before the holidays. It's disrespectful of their time, and the public has every right to know what's in this bill, and quite frankly, the School of Government doesn't even know the direction it's going. So whatever information from our attorney that has an expert in land use and the law has put together with our planning department, who are experts in their field, it should be presented. And I don't understand why half of this board is so against the public knowing what SB 382 is, and why you insist it's only on property rights and not stripping away the planning department's ability to plan for this town and any town. This is a North Carolina issue. It is not just Waxhaw's issue, and everyone I've spoken to has a problem with this bill, and it's going to be addressed.
Have you spoken to Senator Todd Johnson, who's a sponsor of this bill?
Actually, I have.
Okay.
And he doesn't even know how it got in there. So,
He's the primary sponsor.
yeah.
Well, he doesn't know.
He didn't.
Well,
Okay.
apparently.
No, obviously,
Well, you want to invite
obviously-
people here to explain a
Can
bill that
I-
they don't even know how it got in the bill. So we're wasting time in informing the public.
You mean misleading the public?
You are so concerned.
There's a motion on the floor.
Can I just respond to some things that were said? Did not say that I will speak for myself, am against the presentation. I do appreciate the information that was put together and the time that was done with planning or with the town attorney. I am just asking that both sides of the coin be presented at the same time to get a fair and accurate understanding as to why the bill was passed, why we should change it, and have both perspectives. In reviewing the presentation, there is only one perspective being discussed in this presentation. There are other things that may need to be stated. So in order to do that, I am just asking that it be removed at this time, not forever, not that we do not want it to be brought back up again, but to have both sides and all information from both sides presented so that there is a fair understanding as to the whys, the how comes, or the why nots. Not that anything is trying to be hidden from the public, not that anything is trying to be taken from the public, not that we do not appreciate the time that was put into it by staff. So I didn't say that. You said that, and that's not true.
There is no harm in having a discussion about this. The truth does not fear honest examination.
There is no harm in having a
And
discussion, but have a fair and accurate discussion on both sides of the perspective and not a narrow perspective with one side of the coin.
Narrow perspective?
That is it.
Do
That's
you
all
not
that's
think
being
our
said.
attorney is capable of
I'm not
presenting
questioning
this?
the attorney. I'm not questioning the time that was put into it. I am asking for both sides of the coin to be presented at the same time after reviewing what was submitted yesterday.
Both sides of the coin. There's been nothing from the people who passed it.
And
They didn't even have any
Exactly.
discussion about it. It
Okay,
was shoved
then
in at the last
Bring
minute.
the state senator here, bring someone else here to discuss all of that at one time. I even asked for that on Tuesday. So we waited for the presentation to come in, saw the presentation, and that was not in there. So I am just saying that it be removed from this discussion today and brought up at a later date so that everything is said at one time.
And I would also request that the representatives come to this board rather than relying on WUMA. WUMA is not a recognized entity of this board in our bylaws. And for Commissioner Wedger to be there and speaking for the board is not appropriate at this time.
well, you appointed me to WUMA, and now you don't want me to represent you at WUMA?
You can't make decisions or speak for us
Who's
there.
making a decision? It's a conversation. If you're asking me to be a representative on a board, and then you want me not to speak at WUMA, it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Whether you want me or not, I'm here, and I'm going to represent the will of the people. And whether that...
All the people.
All the
So
people.
then allow the presentation that is coming forward
So why
to
would you not
represent
attend a
all the
board meeting
people.
for WUMA?
I didn't say that. I'm just
Commissioner
asking about,
Weston
I'm talking about
Because
the
you said
presentation.
that WUMA was organizing
Yes.
something for them to come. That is for WUMA, though. That is not this board. This board is I am asking that a presentation be made to this board, not to WUMA. I can't attend a meeting during the day at WUMA. I want him to come here and speak to this board and answer the questions directly to this board.
And it will drag it out probably until they're not in session, because they're in session now. So to get them on the calendar for one meeting, it's going to be hard enough. So let's just not know what's going on with SB 382 until they're ready to come out of session.
The reason stated for this by Commissioner Hall was a narrative. We're not here to promote a narrative. We're here to have a discussion, and we need to hear this information, and the public needs to hear this information.
The main purpose for this presentation has been to present our current understanding of the law and the law that has changed recently, a law that was changed sort of nefariously and quickly by tacking it on to a large expenditure bill that was going to benefit Western North Carolina. So we're not looking for a debate on the benefits and the ups and downs or the goods and bads of this law. We are looking for an understanding of how the law will be applied. That's what this presentation is about the town telling the board what they understand about this law. Because as of today, we understand that this law is retroactive to June of last year, which unilaterally eliminates some of the text amendments that have been made last year. So we as a board need to be informed as to how we can maybe get some of those text amendments back and or work around those. So this isn't this presentation is not intended as a debate about pluses and minuses of this new law. It is a discussion about how we apply this law. As I said on Tuesday, Congress will pass the laws, and it's our attorneys and our planners that will interpret and implement the laws. This presentation is meant to guide us in the interpretation and the application of that law. It's not a debate. It's not a discussion about the law. It's not a discussion about support or denial of the law or about a resolution supporting or denying the law. It is an informational session about how the law will be interpreted and applied and how we as board members can interpret and understand that law so we can apply it moving forward to our LDC.
And that's completely understood if it wasn't so misleading. And what I am suggesting and what I'm telling you right now is the way this presentation is framed is misleading. The very comments you just made, the statement that the bill was presented as a hurricane disaster recovery bill, but had many unrelated changes, which is in the statement in the presentation, negates the thought that while it's common for bills to be included in multiple provisions, framing it this way subtly implies that the modification to GS 160D 601 was sneaked in or done in bad faith. This itself is a political tactic to cast doubt on the legitimacy of a law. So what we're saying is, yes, I agree with you. I want to hear more about it, but I want to hear about it from our representatives, from our legislators, and not from a perverted view that's being presented to this board. It needs to be changed. And we haven't had the opportunity to provide fairness and a balance to the way it's presented. That's why we're suggesting.
It was snuck in. David Willis, when I spoke with David Willis, he told me that he had 12 hours to read the entire bill.
Well, then maybe you should take a civics class and see how bills are passed in this country.
It's a political tactic.
It's a screwed up method.
To stick something like this at the back end of a disaster relief bill is a long-standing political tactic of governments large and small. They've done it at the federal level for God knows how long, and now the state is doing it, and it's completely unacceptable how they stick something like this in without any debate, without any open discussion, without any time to review it. And all of our Congress members and Assembly members were forced to approve this because it was disaster relief. It was tied to disaster relief. So it was not a standalone open discussion type of bill. You talk about a political tactic. Sticking this bill at the end of 1,200 pages was a political tactic.
And so the idea here now is to solve the congressional issues within the state of North Carolina, right? No, Mr. Mayor?
We're not solving it. We're trying to be better informed onto what it's about.
We're trying to understand how this affects our town going forward and understand all of the staff work that is going to be thrown into the trash because this thing is retroactive for 6 months.
Already been thrown in the trash. Work has already been removed. Changes to the LDC that we made last year have already been removed. There will be an action on the board in the coming months to remove text that was added last year because of this law. We need to understand why that is being removed and what we can do about it moving forward.
And I would just want to know why any municipality would want to lay down and get any rights stripped away from any of us. We want to put parkland, we want to add tree save, we want to do all these things. All that is going to be stripped away. It's just about.
No, that's false, and that's a scare tactic
Okay.
you're making.
It's not a
That is
scare tactic.
false, absolutely
Yeah,
false.
okay.
Mr. Mayor, there is a motion on the table.
Well,
All in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
no.
Apparently, the ayes have it. The motion carries. We will move on. Next on the agenda. Thank you for the smooth start.
Good morning. How are y'all doing? I'm Lee Ainsworth. I'm with the North Carolina DOT. I'm your Division Project Development Engineer, and we were asked to come and give a quick update on some of our projects and a little bit of our organizational structure and local contact information. So, like I said, we're going to go through org chart, go through all those projects, a couple of unfunded projects, one resurfacing project, some upcoming traffic maintenance, and how we fund some of our TIP projects and maintenance, how our maintenance dollars are spent. So in our division, we have the division engineer. He's the guy at the top of the hill. Then we have our deputy division engineer. Then we're broken up into 3 central units: maintenance, construction, and project development. And in our maintenance unit, we have our district engineers and our traffic services and division traffic engineer, our county road and bridge maintenance engineers, our equipment shops and our MRTMC. That's our traffic management center in Charlotte that reviews all the traffic cameras and provides our IMAP service on interstates. So our construction engineer, he manages our resident engineers. That's our units that administer our contracts, do our own QA/QC, and we expect our contractors to make sure they're building to our specifications and standard drawings. And then we have a utility unit where we coordinate utilities for all of our projects. And then we have our project development unit, which is mine, and we have our DDC unit, which is our own division design and construction unit. We have our bridge program to replace bridges throughout the division, and our DM-SIP program. That's our division-managed STI projects that we manage here locally. And then we have our contract unit, our environmental and Padilla unit, and then our locally administered project group. So some of your primary points of contact is your district office, your District 3 engineer, which is Amelia. Wave, smile. And that office covers a lot of things. Their specific roles are for doing driveway permits and encroachments from development, coordination with the municipalities, with their projects and some of our projects, and putting together our resurfacing maps. Our program is managed by the division office, not division, the district office before it goes out to contract. And they're kind of your jack of all trades. You're the one stop and shop for if you have any question revolving the department, she would be the person you want to contact. And then we have our county maintenance yard, and they're responsible for exactly what it says, doing all the road maintenance as far as potholes, dead animals, shoulder construction, re-ditching, putting in residential driveways. And then we have our traffic office, and our traffic engineer, Zach Gardner. And that in itself is for all your traffic concerns with your signals, your striping. If you have any concerns about your speed limits, you would contact that office and put in a formal request. So as far as projects that are in development, we have U5769, which is the NC16 widening. We plan to begin right away here within the next couple months, and then that will leave utilities, start the relocation in August of 27, and hopefully we'll go to construction in July of 29. I will say that we're in the process of reprioritizing our SIP program, so there's an opportunity that the project could slip back a little bit further from that year. And if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably a year max, but that program should be coming out any day now.
Do we have a sense of the likelihood of that getting pushed back? Or-
I'd say has a good chance, just because we haven't made it into the right-of-way acquisition stage yet.
Okay. So because we're not far enough along with it, it makes it easier to just kind of push it back a year?
Well, we were taking our projects across the state, obviously, and
Yeah.
trying to prioritize that program. And some of the things they looked at as far as keeping them on track were we in the right-of-way acquisition process, or were we close? Do we have our environmental document? Because if we've already purchased right-of-way, we need to make a commitment to those people that we've worked out and continue forward.
Yep.
And so those projects got priority, most likely. And then this one's really here on the cusp of starting, so it's next in line to either, if it does get delayed, it won't be much. A fiscal year is how it gets planned out. So at the end of the day, it might not be that bad for what what really happens across the state.
Thank you.
And so, like I said, we're in our roadway design process. We have our hydraulic review that's being finished up, and once we finish that, we'll cross-check it with our permanent utility easements, and we should be fine to go ahead and begin our right-of-way acquisition this April. U5769AA, that's the intersection of NC 16 and Bonds Grove Church Road. Initially, when this project came online, we were going to try and combine it with the larger project, but because of the timing and the fact that this one's funded differently than our STI project, we pulled it back out separately and went ahead and started moving forward with it in an effort to get it done prior to NC 16 widening and get some serviceable life out of it. So we began right away last year. We should be moving into utility location this summer and hopefully awarded out the contract next February.
Will that project be complementary to the widening, or will it be just one of those things we do ahead of the widening and then the widening will kind of pave all
We'll do
over
it ahead of the
again?
widening.
Sorry.
We'll do it ahead of the widening. It'll be completed by next summer.
But from a design standpoint, will that design complement the design of the widening, or will the widening have to just redo all that work?
We'll incorporate as much as we can, obviously.
Yeah.
But, there might be some things we have to take out. But, we're going to try to make sure we save as much as we can,
Yeah. So it remains a long-term solution?
of course. U6248, that's the roundabout going in at NC 75 and Old Providence Road. We're about ready to start right-of-way acquisition. We've had some challenges working through the historic property and getting where we have a final design that we can work with. And hopefully we'll be under construction by summer of '27. BP10.RO17, the bridge replacement right out here. Right-of-way began back in May. Hopefully we'll start utility relocation this summer and expect to award it next fall. P5748, the Helms Road grade separation. This project's being managed by the Rail Division. And as you can see, it's the grade separate Helms Road over 75. Right-of-way should begin here shortly within the next couple months, with utility relocations beginning in June, and hopefully we'll be under contract by next summer. The roundabout at Newtown and Cuthbertson Road. Right-of-way hopefully beginning in November. What's important here is we're still working with the design firm to issue an NTP and get through our scoping document and Monday estimate so we can get started. And once we do that, we'll actually have some more accurate dates that we can rely on. Right now, we're just doing a best guess on how that would work. But hopefully, we'll be under construction by '28. And then the roundabout at Bonds Grove Church in Waxhaw Marvin, we just got started on that one. We're doing that one in-house. Survey's complete. We should start designing anytime now, with the hope of going to construction in September of '28. And so for unfunded projects, the Waxhaw Parkway, we have two sections of that. The northeast section is the longest one. Right now, it's currently unfunded. It's been submitted in the prioritization process the past 3 cycles. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to get selected in this prioritization because of the cost escalations. And to be honest, we're not going to have probably any new projects in our division or regional tier. But I think the town's wish is to adjust the MTP, and hopefully resubmit it in P8 submittal, which will start, I think, this fall. And then you have the northwest section. It was submitted in P 7.0, but like I said, we didn't get any projects out of that. Probably won't get any projects out of that. And that, the town is expecting to go back and apply for DA funds through the MPO. And so as far as resurfacing goes, I know this one's been on the books for a while, and we've been trying to get it to fruition, is resurfacing NC 75. And unfortunately, I think we had to extend the contract to next spring, or this spring. I'm assuming there were some delays, the contractor.
They added a map, and it just pushed
The completion date out.
back.
Yeah.
They are planning on beginning patching March, April, and that's the first one.
Okay, so we should have that wrapped up by early summer.
So we'll be patching in March and April of this year
That's what they're going
at the very least, and then
Yeah.
we'll start resurfacing, it looks like the spring of this year.
And so other projects we may have from our traffic services unit, and this is a more maintenance style, is to refresh some of the turn arrows, stop bars, and the gore lines and lane lines on South Providence Street. Refresh turn arrows, stop bars, crosswalks, and lane lines on South Main and Highway 16. Do a refreshment at the Rehoboth and West Main intersection. And at Kensington Drive and Millbridge, we're going to install a signal, which I think the town's paying for. We're managing that. Get that to fruition for you. So as far as STI and funding goes, for the 2635 STIP, we submitted projects for scoring in P 7.0 back in summer, fall of 23. And then the quantitative scores were released in the spring or summer of 24, and then we assigned points to those projects. Like I said, the draft STIP should be out any day now. If it's not out, I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but it could have been out late last night or today. It just doesn't have filtered down to me yet. And then this summer, the board will adopt the draft, and the STIP will be final, and then we'll begin the P8 development this fall and start submitting projects or identifying projects for submittal on that. And just a little history on how the STI funding is broken down. So off the top, you have the first 40%. Those are your statewide projects that are selected by our central unit. Basically, they select these projects, and they generally include most of your interstates and U.S. routes, and the really large projects. And they score them internally, select them, and they just tell us we're getting those funded. And then you have your regional tier, which is 70% quantitative based off of the scoring methodology that we have, and then a 30% local input from the MPO. And then you have your division needs tier, which I'm pretty sure is half and half. So it's 50% based on the methodology score, and then 50% based on points assigned from your local MPO. And there's a quick breakdown of all the other things that go into our methodology on how to score these projects. In the interest of time, I'll just kind of skip that one. So as far as the funding breakdown goes, in the division needs tier, DA funds for MPOs, bridge safety, economic development, and railroad crossing projects come out of that pot. It's about $65 million. The MPO gets about 27 of it. We get the remainder. Like I've been saying, due to cost escalations, we're not expecting to get any new projects in the division needs or the regional tier. Also in the regional tier, I have my glasses on, so I'm sorry. These projects are submitted by both divisions. So all of there are 14 divisions in the state. Each division has a sister division, and that creates a region. We're Region E. We share that with Division 8. And so that pot of money is split between us and them. And those projects are scored and prioritized. And even though it's not an equal split sometimes, we do share these dollars with another division. And then we have the statewide tier, like I said. Those are projects that are 100% quantitative scores, and those decisions made for us by our central STIP unit. And other funding sources, you have your CRTPO, your DA funds, you have your CMAQ funds, you have your carbon reduction funds, we have our spot safety, high hazard, and spot mobility funds and our high-low impact funds. As far as like our spot safety or our spot mobility, those come with caps. Our spot safety is $400,000. Our spot mobility is $750,000. You know, it's difficult to build a project with either one of those here lately. So what we typically do is we take those dollars and use them as a match, and we'll compete with everyone else to go after a DA project or CMAQ funds with the MPO or with the state. As far as division maintenance goes, so we have our general maintenance reserve that we're allocated every year. And it funds dozens of programs across the state, but at a division level, it really only funds 7 programs. It funds our general maintenance, which is roadway and bridge, our roadside environmental, our emergency response fund, our contract resurfacing, pavement preservation, our bridge preservation, our division bridge program. I will say that the roadside environmental and the bridge preservation, they fund those, but you're only allowed to do certain types of work with those dollars. And so we work to get that funding there, assign it, and sometimes it can be a challenge to get that work done for its design purpose. But we do a pretty good job of making it work and getting those dollars spent for something that's effective and economical. And the other two, the contract resurfacing and your division bridge program and your pavement preservation, those are typically contracted out. We all know we send contract resurfacing, and our pavement preservation pays for stuff like your chip seals, your tar and gravel, full depth reclamation, any other type of asphalt seal that isn't asphalt concrete. Some of the other funding uses are to help pay for our county maintenance units, our bridge maintenance units, our interstate maintenance. We're a little different than most divisions. We have our own unit dedicated to maintain our interstate system within Mecklenburg County and the Expressway in Union. We have our traffic services unit, and it also funds our district offices. That's like Amelia, they review all of our driveway permits and encroachments, and that we consider that a maintenance unit activity and not construction or project development. And we use those dollars also to supplement our other programs like roadside environmental, bridge preservation, and pavement preservation in the bridge program. And by doing that, when we supplement those programs with our GMR, it opens up what all we can really pay for. Because with our bridge program, you know, we can only replace bridges. So if we go and try to say change it, it would get some more life expectancy out of that structure and go for a preservation treatment on the deck. That changes our funding type. So we're either falling back to either our bridge preservation pot, which isn't that much, or we're going back to after our general maintenance and moving those dollars around to get ourselves the best product in the end. And here you can see just a comparison of how our maintenance dollars go. You see resurfacing, our roadside environmental, pavement preservation, bridge preservation have all been about the same amount every year. But this fiscal year, we went from $42 million to $64.5 million in maintenance. That's a pretty significant increase considering in 2021, our program only had $28 million. In 22, we had $32 million, and it's kind of gone up incrementally to the 42. So we went from one challenge of not having enough money to do any work to having a huge surplus that we're expected to spend in one fiscal year. So we're like every other division, we're bringing in our contracting partners to help get some of this work done. And it's a challenge as it is to get that kind of dollar spent within one fiscal year. Some funding challenges overall with the TIP. Normally we're able to fund about 25% of the projects we submit, but like I said, due to cost increases, the percentage of funded projects will be much lower in this prioritization round. The department's working towards creating a funding program that's stable and that can overcome inflation that we've had over the past few years. Like our spot safety and spot mobility, I mentioned those limits, and you can't really do a lot for $400,000. You can't do much more than $750. You can't build a roundabout. Roundabout costs you about $2.5 million these days, at the very least. They can go up to $3.5 million, depending on if they're multi-lanes, depending on where they're at and where those right-of-way increase costs will be. And then you have your maintenance funding. As I was saying, you see those jumps. So if anything, we're consistently inconsistent when it comes to funding maintenance dollars. So you're constantly juggling your own resources and relying on your contracting partners. And they're doing the same thing, juggling their own resources because, hey, we know the state got an extra, $30 million in this division one year. How do they accommodate themselves and prepare? Because they want to hire people for 1 year and let them go because our funding went back down when we're trying to manage those spikes. It's the same concern we all have. And that's pretty much it. I try to rush through that pretty quickly in the sake of keeping you guys on time. Do y'all have any questions for me?
I have a question about the roundabout on Newtown and Cuthbertson.
Okay.
You said it's possibly starting in November, or it's contracted in November, is that?
That one, it will start design any time now. We're currently working with our design firm, and we gave it to a firm. We can design roundabouts in-house, but when we feel like it's a little more time sensitive to get them done, we hire them out to a firm because they can turn around probably a year or two sooner than we can just because of our workload. And we have, our unit's probably got 5 people in it. And they have a whole firm. So we'll have that hopefully starting within the next month or so. I'm trying to remember where we projected those dates to be, that we will start buying right-of-way later this year. If we can get under contract here within the next few weeks, that's probably likely. And then be in construction by January 28th. January of 28, excuse me. So hopefully when we get worked out and get NTP to our contractor, our private firm, we can probably narrow that down, pinpoint it a little better.
Mm-hmm. And how long does a project like that take? And if it is during the school year, who's in charge of rerouting those buses?
So with this one, we made the decision to build it under traffic. So you won't have a detour with this one.
Oh, you won't?
And there might be a short duration detour when we're finishing things up and trying to get all the traffic let back out. But right now our plan is to do it under traffic and allow, is it going to be great? No, but there's going to be construction going on. But we're still going to have that movement in days in, and we'll probably have restrictions in there where they can't begin work or close the lane prior to 8 or 8:30, and they have to be out by 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, that's the concern.
We're 100% cognizant of the school. We certainly want this to be as unintrusive as possible.
Thank you.
Lee, James told me earlier that you're looking at reanalyzing STIP projects. Is there any chance that this gets forgotten? And
No, this is funded differently. This is not within our SIP program.
Nothing else from the board?
All right.
Well, thank you. I just want to say, as a representative of the town of Waxhaw, I extend my appreciation for the hard work DOT has done over the last several months. I've had a chance to chat with Brett Knipe a couple of times at CARPO meetings about all the work that was done in Western North Carolina. So for the town of Waxhaw, we say thank you to the NCDOT for the work they did to help our friends in Western North Carolina and get them to recover. I know it was a colossal amount of work that was done over the last few months, and there's still plenty more to do. So we understand some of our projects might get delayed as a result, but we thank the effort.
Well, right now, I don't think there's any plan to delay our projects because of what's happening in the West. We did receive, I want to say, $350 million up front in disaster recovery dollars.
Yeah.
And typically, we wouldn't get those monies for a couple of years after we finish. So
That's great.
that'll help balance it out, and we can program it out a lot better. But I appreciate the opportunity to come down here, and believe it or not, the department's here to help. We want to help foster growth within your community and build these relationships as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Okay, Mayor, the next item on the agenda is a financial status, which will be done by Mrs. Dodd.
Okay. So we have, good morning, everybody. We have first to show you that this year we are making a request to allow us to purchase ClearGov budgeting software. This software, not used to moving around, there we go, provides an added number of benefits for the town and the teams to put together our budget in a very cohesive manner. It will allow us all to work into the same system. It will attach and be able to pull information directly from our financial software. It will be, how would I say, it will move us from each department working in a spreadsheet, having to have one individual compile all the different spreadsheets into a main spreadsheet, create it into PDFs. It will allow us to be more accurate and to provide a better outlook, a beautiful booklet. It will give us a digital booklet. Everyone will be able to see where we are. We will more easily be able to make adjustments into the budget so it will carry forward, and it will also allow us to apply for the Government Finance Officer's Award for Budgeting, which would be a great attribute for the town. It will give transparency. Everyone will be able to see everything as it moves along. Everyone will be able to go in and look at the progress as it happens. And there we are. That's basically it. It's software. So, and it would, realistically, modernize. What'd I do? There we go. It would modernize the process for the town and the team, and we would all be able to work together better to see where each department is instead of currently we're siloed. We don't all see what everyone else is working on. And that's that. Question?
Do you see any cons in going with a system like this compared to what we have today, or is this all
I'm
upside?
sorry.
Do you see any cons or any downsides to this as it's compared to what we're doing today, or is this all upside?
It's definitely a pro. I don't really see any downsides other than I don't see any downsides. It takes an enormous amount of time to prepare the budget, and especially when we get close to comprising the entire booklet, it takes numerous man-hours moving the data from one spreadsheet to another. It's not just where we're able to link things together because the spreadsheets aren't standardized. We don't all have the same lines, right? So it's very cumbersome the way we're doing it now. And over the past few months, we've discovered several errors in the budget, things that were missed, things that were not presented appropriately the way they should have. And this would help us to eliminate those type of errors. And it would also, it definitely would be a great thing for us.
Sounds like this would save a lot of manual time that's spent on creating images and things. Like you guys can just
Yes.
enter the data and then it spits out all of the charts and
It will pull the
everything.
data. It will also, once the budget is approved, it will allow us to upload the budget into our finance system instead of me entering the budget manually. And I will tell you, last June when it came to entering the budget because we have to make so many little changes because the way we budget in totals by department, especially revenue. The process of entering the budget into the financial software actually took me an entire week. By the time I could get it all calculated out and balanced. So I would not be having to spend an entire week doing this. And this does not, count the number of hours Melody and Susan put into comprising the worksheets, formatting them into a PDF format from the Excel format, sending it to Haven to enter it into another software, the PDFs into another software, and formatting it into the booklet that you see. So this will do all of that for us. It will allow us to make a presentation out of it with, it will allow us to add documents, photos, anything we want to add into it and make it a more concise and beautiful presentation. And it clearly explains everything with total transparency. There's nothing that should be missed
So
unless we missed it entering.
So previously, all the image creation and everything was done manually, right? All the layout and creative work on it.
Yes.
And that's all now automated. All you have to do is plug numbers in and it'll make it all for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's great to have machines work for us instead of the other way around, right?
Right. So this would be very good for us. So thank you.
I think this is a great find, Rosemary. Very nice, nicely done, very forward-looking. I just had one quick question. The annual subscription cost, is that based on a certain number of licenses, or is it an unlimited amount of licenses?
It's unlimited, the number of users. And I will say that they are holding us. Those are the 2024 pricing. They are giving us the opportunity to lock it in before they initiate increases at the end of this first quarter. So beginning in April, the prices would go up. They will allow us to lock it in if we sign a contract, also with the option to cancel if it comes out where we cannot afford it in the budget.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will it also keep track of expenses so we can have a running sort of expense report at the end of the month or at a quarterly basis? Or is it all just budgeting?
That is something completely different. With the admin software that we have most recently implemented into finance, coming soon, you will have access to an online dashboard, which will give you the ability to go in there on any given day. You can log in, and it will pull data real time. You'll be able to see departmental expenses. You'll be able to see where we are going on any day. You'll also be able to see the revenues as we're able to post them into the system. The cash balances at the bank. That will be a very good tool for you. Instead of me working the numbers manually into a spreadsheet at the end of every month and sending it to the town manager to send and distribute to you. So I will probably still do that, checks and balances, but this way you'll have the opportunity to look into the system whenever you need. That's coming soon. It's been a very slow process on the implementation, and I just received an email yesterday that she has been working on the dashboard, and you should be seeing an invite soon to get a login.
And then is training included in all the implementation costs?
For this,
New software, yeah.
Yes. Yes. It's all good. We've been working hard in finance, I promise.
Thank you.
All right. And this is good? All right. I do not know how to move this around. Where to find my dashboard information. I don't do this enough, I'm sorry. I have another presentation. Is that right? Oh, thank you. Apparently I can't see either. All right. So this is prepared for you, just the revenue and expenditures through the end of December. It's the 6th month. To see where we are at 6 months, halfway through the year. This first page is our bank balances. So you can see that we're holding well. We're still earning terrific interest on our investments, and this helps us immensely. Those investments are held in the North Carolina Capital Management Trust. We monitor them monthly. We also use those accounts for our special revenue funds, the grants, the state appropriations, since we are not allowed to commingle them into our regular operating expenses. All right. Any questions on the bank? Okay. And apologies, I had changed those slides. They did not get updated. So, all right. So this slide does show where we are for our anticipated revenue for the fiscal year and the actual revenue that we have received. We are at 55.63%. What you're not seeing here is from the dashboard, where we have actually, we have not received all of our ad valorem taxes yet. We're at about $8 million. We received in January about $1.2 million additional, so we're closing in on the 100%. So we're doing very well on collections with the ad valorem with the county. And here we are, our year-to-date expenditures by department, and we are running very well on track with where we should be at 6 months. I will point out that administration is showing at a very large percentage, and this is mainly due to the increase we incurred with the property casualty liability insurance costs, adding vehicles and the town campus. It actually increased our cost of the insurance more than we had anticipated. And I think that was it. Any questions about finance?
Tom, Rosie, you're in the admin budget. Isn't debt service for this building covered in that budget?
Yes,
Tom,
debt
also,
service
when you've
is
already
in that
made that
budget.
payment, so that's why that one shows a lot higher.
Yes. That payment occurs at the 1st of August of every year for the next 18 years. So we're good.
So that basically that one payment is half of that expenditures presented so far.
Right. All right.
Hey, Rosemary, you made a comment about the insurance cost. I know in the private sector, it's continual issue where every couple months or 6 months you have to look for new insurance just to get a better rate. Does the town have that ability, or are we locked in for a period of time with an insurance carrier?
We currently purchase our insurance through the league, the North Carolina League of Municipalities. Where's my friend Susan? Susan is our manager of the liability and property casualty insurance.
Are we on? Yeah. We purchased that insurance from the league. It's a pool fund, and we renew once a year. So unfortunately, the league sets their rates after we approve our budget, so we are always in a catch-up phase with that. This March, they have a local roundtable of discussing rates in Mount Holly this year. So it's a close location. So I haven't discussed it with Richard yet, but that's a morning session, and I'm going to try and plan to go to that to talk to them to get some more feedback on the rates. They have been extremely wonderful to work with as far as customer service support. Anything I need, I usually get a response within a few hours. Any claims we have to submit for any type of vehicular accident, they're usually responding that afternoon if I submit in the morning. So I cannot say enough about the service we see from them and the support we receive from them. Overall, they also have a risk section that Parks and Rec works with on a regular basis. And the same, he's super supportive, and with the downtown park, literally walk that facility with Miss Dina and her crew to give advice on how to insure, what to insure, the liability and the risk we would be facing with that new facility. They've done similar with this campus. I submitted, and they came back took them a little bit, but they came back about a week later. And if anybody noticed, I was walking the parking lot with a camera, taking pictures of light poles, any additional structures. So they gave me guidance on that too, of how to insure, what to insure. So they're a wonderful team to work with, and I've been very pleased since I've taken over that responsibility with the support we receive from them.
Great. Thank you for that explanation.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosie.
Tom, okay, Mayor, we're scheduled for I think 15-minute break. Looks like we're on schedule. The next presentation on capital projects, I think, is going to be about an hour and a half, so it might be time for a break.
Sounds good to me. We'll go ahead and go to a break.
I noticed they were reversed. get started again. This presentation will be on the capital projects. As I mentioned, the staff has been working as a team for the past several weeks on this project. We are sorry it's not in a nice spreadsheet. I mean, a nice PowerPoint presentation, but we worked on it long and hard, and we just finished it up. As I mentioned, it's an extensive list. We know we won't fund all of it. As I mentioned earlier, if you see things you like on this list, if you'll put it in your left-hand column on that sheet I'm asking you to write. If you see things you don't like on this list, put that in your column on the right. It was very, I worked in a lot of towns, and it was very refreshing to see the staff work as a group on this project. Usually you'll see they'll go to their separate departments, and they'll prepare their report, and they'll send it to the manager and say, here's mine, and the next department sends theirs over. This time they worked as a team. As they make their actual presentations, you'll see other staff members up here with them because they support each other. A lot of these projects carry across several different departments, and they work very hard on that. I would add what we're presenting to you today is at a very high level. We're not going to get into a significant amount of details. If you have questions, please ask. As I mentioned, once you give us your feedback on your list, which ones you like, which ones you don't like, we'll go back and we'll work on that. As we get into the budget, we know some of them will fall out because we just don't have funds to do it. As I mentioned, keep an open mind. I think they are all good projects. Unfortunately, you don't have enough resources to do all of them in a short period of time. So at this point, we'll start, and each person will be making a separate presentation. And as I mentioned, if you got questions, please ask. Thank you.
Any volunteers?
Well, good morning. Joe, if you don't mind, could you zoom in a little bit for me? A little bit more, a lot more.
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Thank you, that's good. So these first few projects are already projects that are well underway. Just highlighting those in green there, those completed projects. So the Safety Action Plan, the Safety Task Force met for their first meeting last night. Commissioners Wedra and Westlick were in attendance, as well as, I think we had basically everyone there showing in attendance. We had DOT at the table, we had CRTPO at the table. We had a really good turnout from the residents as well. So really excited about how that plan develops and progresses ultimately to implementation. That's the focus on the Safety Action Plan. Remember, these are federal dollars. It says $160,000. The town is really only responsible for $32,000 of that. The remaining $128,000 comes from these federal dollars. So these numbers may seem high as we go throughout them. Just want to note that from a high-level standpoint, some of these projects are already partially funded, so these numbers are a little bit conservative to begin with. As far as the Kensington Road and Millbridge Parkway signal, so we have already completed the design for that, working with our consultant, with Kimley Horn. This goes back to the Millbridge HOA support and need for the signal at that intersection. We worked with DOT for the past year or so, determining if warrants were met. They were indeed met, and we've progressed, and we're wrapping up that design now as we speak, looking to get that back into the hands of the Millbridge HOA for any comments as we move to right-of-way and then ultimately construction. One thing to note here is one thing that you don't see up there is the Lawson Drive and Cuthbertson Road signal. So that was a priority listed. It was one of the lower priorities on our master transportation plan. So we did meet with the Lawson HOA folks. They have decided 4-1 to vote against the project, so that project is not listed up there. Unfortunately, from a safety standpoint, the product is definitely still needed, so I think more continued dialogue is warranted there. With that said, it really comes to an attitude change from the Lawson HOA to see if they're willing to have more discussions. But for right now, that project has been completely removed from the list. Moving into the downtown master plan. Ashley, would you like to make any comments on that? We're good. We're moving forward. You can see that's up there as well. Handheld radios and bulletproof vests.
The handheld radios have been we have them. They're actually being, the software is being installed with Union County right now.
And then moving into our proposed engineering and planning projects, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a high-level overview for each of these. If you have any questions, feel free to stop me right after that before I move on to the next one, and we can dive into that if need be. So this first one is small transportation fund project expense. This is something that the town has done traditionally. This accounts for your non-PAL bill eligible, so these are not PAL bill eligible funds. These are funds that are used for like parking lots, other small types of transportation, paving operations where PAL bill may not be eligible, other maintenance needs where PAL bill may not be eligible. So these are still really critical funds as far as making projects and maintenance needs whole while not having to dive into that PAL bill bucket, because PAL bill specifies what uses you can and cannot use. A lot of those uses, were restricted from the PAL bill funds, so we need to pitch in some of our own funds to make those areas whole from a maintenance standpoint. Any questions on that? Hearing none, we'll move into the next one, the Kensington Drive and NC-16 intersection construction. So that number, you see there, the $1.65 million, that seems like a big number. Really, we already have the $1.25 million already allocated to that within your current budget year. So really, we're only talking about a $425,000 increase. Those increases come from right-of-way as well as additional federal and state requirements for construction, engineering, and inspection fees. Those are requirements as a part of the federal projects. As far as schedule, so right now we are closing with the final parcel as far as right-of-way acquisition. So we should receive our right-of-way certification in March. We've already started to talk with the utilities, Union Power, all the fiber folks, and everyone else in the area to start relocating those utilities, and then ultimately looking to have a project let late September of this year to start diving into construction. So really this one's going to move rather quick as far as the next year or so. It's just we got delayed from some of those right-of-way negotiations that we're now closing. Any questions on that one?
You mentioned some of that has already been paid for, so some of this 1.6 has already been covered in FY25?
Correct. So in FY25, we had $1.25 million already budgeted for that, for our needs. So really this 1.675 is that continuation of that 1.25 million that we've already had, just adjusting the budget year because the construction got delayed into
so
FY26.
So the 1.6 includes the 1.2 that's already
correct.
been spent. So going into FY26, we shouldn't expect another 1.6. It should be
that's right.
0.4.
Correct.
Thanks.
All right, moving into the next one, Pine Oak Signal. We had a lot of discussion last night about this particular area at our safety task force. We are partnering with the Prescott Development folks to share a proportional share as a part of the project. Total cost for the project originally, the NCDOT estimates were about $3 million for the project. Working with those folks and able to kind of pool our money together. The town's proportional share is $750,000. We were able to make it more efficient as far as the cost savings to bring the total cost of the project down from that original $3 million estimate to a total of about $1.6 million estimate. So total is about 1.6, and then our proportional share of the project is $750,000. So this is a really great way to not only make the projects more cost efficient, but also improve the schedule and have this constructed within the next year. Questions? The next one is the actual construction of the Kensington and Mill Bridge traffic signal. Again, that's a continuation of what was already said before. Before was the design and right-of-way. Once we conclude that with the Mill Bridge HOA, we will then move toward construction, finalizing those permitting fees with DOT, as well as construction drawings, and moving into the actual implementation in FY26. Questions on that one?
So when do you expect construction to start on that stoplight?
To start, it depends upon DOT's permitting and actual approval of the documents. With that said, I mean, you could, if we are able to achieve right-of-way and get that done within the next, say, 3 to 4 months, and have the DOT approvals work simultaneously with that, you could really get moving on this in the next, let's say, 6 to 8 months, as far as letting the project, bidding it out, and then moving forward that way. And we do have continued support from the Millbridge HOA, which is a huge help as far as project progression here.
So worst case scenario, maybe end of this year?
End of this year or early next year.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions on any other questions? Nope. Okay. So next one is the Bondsgrove Church and NC16 intersection. So DOT mentioned this. This is the U5769 AA project. This is the project, an interim improvement ahead of the widening project. As you saw, DOT is already well underway. They're in the right-of-way phase right now. I still would advise, you know, we talked about the MTP and resubmitting projects and that sort of thing. Dependent upon DOT's finances that are projected to be released as part of the STIP early February, excuse me, I still would advise that we continue to just submit that just to be ultra safe, to make sure that that project continues to be on the list, even though it's already progressed to the right-of-way stage. As far as our local match, you know, total cost of that is in the millions of dollars. Our local match from Waxhaw is $355,000. Of that, I will say the Adelina subdivision is responsible for a payment in lieu for that intersection. So as far as the payment in lieu amount, we will be receiving payment in lieu funds in the amount of about $235,000. So really, once you look at those funds, we only have about $120,000 remaining to complete the project from Waxhaw's funds. Any questions there? Nope. Okay. All right, the next one is very exciting, which is the Helms Road extension. So over the past few months, the Project Oversight Committee, which Waxhaw serves on, has been working with CRTPO to develop these project scores for various DA or direct allocation projects. So I do have exciting news to share, which is the Helms Road extension project ranked the #1 highest highway new project for the entire region. So that's throughout Mecklenburg County, throughout Union County, Iredell counties. Of the total scores out of 100, it scored an 87 out of 100. So that's on par of competing with like Charlotte's projects, for example. That's a really, really high score. So of the criteria that CRTPO uses to score that, you know, they look at a local match standpoint. The board did increase its match, which helps significantly to improve that score. They also look at project readiness as far as, you know, how far you progress with the project. You at least have a preliminary concept. What monies are you asking for? They look at the NCDOT safety score, which we received the full 15 out of 15 points, the congestion score, 15 out of 15 points, as well as cost effectiveness and crash reduction scores as well. So overall, we are anticipated to receive approximately $4.9 million from CRTPO, and that award will be expected in March. The timing is also useful for this project because along with the CRTPO award comes a STIP number designation to the project, or State Transportation Improvement Program number. This is important from a advocacy standpoint, legislative advocacy standpoint, because now we will have that STIP number assigned to the project. Waxhaw is responsible for the other $4.9 million match plus the $750,000 in design. So Waxhaw is responsible for a proportional share of about $5.7 million, which you could request, the board could make a request to the state legislature for reimbursement of that proportional share of the $5.7 million. This project also received support basically unanimously throughout the entire county. We received support from Union County Board of Commissioners, as well as the Mineral Springs Town Council, as well as other councils within the area as well. So this is a very, very good project from a advocacy standpoint, as well as from a congestion and safety standpoint. As far as the initial, this is broken up in your spreadsheet here. The design, that's 100% Waxhaw funded, the $750,000. Again, there's potential for state legislator support there. Questions on just the design aspect?
Part of this involves the railroads, right? So they're building.
Yeah, so that's the other project. So this is separate. It's really an extension of that project. So the railroad is P5748B, is their overpass with the Helms Road grade separation to connect to 75. This will complete an extension of that project to tie fully into 16 to complete the entire western bypass of the Waxhaw Parkway.
When this was being designed, we did request assistance from the railroad, or more like a closer look at this, and please finish the road, and that was denied. So it wasn't unforeseen on our part. It was the railroad saying, no, we don't want to spend the additional funds to help you out.
So this coordination probably makes it a bit hazy as to when it would happen, right?
As far as the construction?
Yeah.
Oh, so no, the construction will be on a set timeline. So our design is FY 25-26. You'll be looking at right-of-way FY, let's say 27-28, and then construction FY 28-29. So we are looking to tie this in simultaneously with the railroads project. The railroad's committing a significant portion already. I think their portion may be 20+ million on the P5748 project. So this really helps from a freight mobility standpoint as well as from that congestion relief and safety improvement too.
One question that I had regarding our match for the grant, when do we expect that to hit in terms of fiscal year? Is that going to be one solid hit for FY26, FY27, or
that's a great
part
question.
Of that allocated already that you kind of have in the bank?
The short answer is no. So in this, as we go throughout this list here, you'll see that this category is just the Helms Road extension design portion. Obviously, the bigger hit will be the actual construction portion of the project, which we can go ahead and talk about now. Further down this list is the Helms Road extension right-of-way item, which looks like is FY 27. So, and then of course your construction funds are FY 29. So it is spread out across the next 5 years. With that said, the biggest portion of that will be your construction portion there at the end.
So it's not necessarily going to be one single fiscal year hit of that 4.5.
That's correct. It's going to be split up a little bit.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on that one? Nope. Okay, so the next one is the U6248 roundabout project there at NC 75 in Old Providence. DOT made mention of this project. The town of Waxhaw's proportional share of that project is estimated to be $710,000. I will say, that number seems high. With that said, we've already received a payment in lieu from the preserve development in the amount of $428,000. So really, the only remaining funds that Waxhaw is responsible for is approximately $282,000 of that original $710,000. So that is That 710 number is a little bit high, but really, once you factor in the payment in lieu that we've already received, the remaining funds come out to be about $282,000. Questions on that? Next one is the NC-16 turn lane and NC-16 75 intersection. That's also known as the Broome Street Roadway Improvement Project. The code for that is HL0115. So Waxhaw has a proportional share of about $95,000 in the design for FY26. Again, with that said, we've also received another payment in lieu from the Preserve Development in the amount of $172,000 for that intersection, and are expected to receive other payment in lieus for that intersection as well. So the design is fully covered as a part of those payment in lieus. Questions on that? All right, West North Main Street. So this really is a request coming from the engineering department. You know, we had our completion of our TAP project over there on East North Main Street, and that looks amazing over there. The engineering department is requesting that the board help fund a design of approximately $115,000 for the design of the western portion to make to basically have some uniformity between East North Main and West North Main. We did do a previous streetscape design, so we have some old plans that we can dust off a little bit there. With that said, though, that streetscape design was done in 2015, so here we are a decade later. We would want to obviously modernize that design to better support the current needs of the community. Questions on that?
Yeah, so what did you have in mind? Did you want to make it as uniform as possible as by Middle James, or are we doing anything with the sidewalks, or is that the idea?
So it'd be all-inclusive, like an all-inclusive, like complete streets design, like what we did over there with TAP, with the sidewalks and everything, make that uniform across the entire North Main Street section from east to west. That's the thought. And then also tie in the portion of where North Church connects to West North Main. That would be an additional piece up to McDonald's. So really have that whole North Main streetscape as uniform as possible.
Okay, thank you.
North Main would still be a two-way road instead of the one-way road on the other side. So it would be a little bit different design, but very similar.
Yeah. So Ryan, you may want to talk about this next one. So the next one is for information only. It's the Kensington Drive sidewalk, the sidewalk on the north side of Kensington from Garrison Grove Lane to Waxhaw Marvin to install the crosswalk near the elementary school. Do you want to talk more about that one?
This is the north side of Kensington. No, I'm not familiar with that, James.
Okay. Well, this really is an extension. You'll see two pieces in here just for information only. Is number one, we want to extend the sidewalk from Waxhaw Marvin to do those pedestrian improvements with the push buttons there at the intersection and connect it to the school, because that's the missing gap of sidewalk that we have is from Kensington Elementary School.
So that would be on the south side, not the north side. That's why
That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Well, the bulk of it would be on the north, but then that little piece would be the south, right? Or
No, so basically we're going to be trying to connect it from Kensington Elementary all the way to Waxhaw Marvin. So you're working with DOT on getting the intersection improvements and the crosswalks, and then we'll be working with a contractor to get from Town Hall to the elementary school as the second part. And we already have bids on that. I just really need to get some survey on that and roll with it. We already have the funds for it. So I don't know how
So
that's
we'll take a second look at what this one is. I am seeing further down the list, there is another Kensington Drive sidewalk list, and that may be the one. Sidewalk from Lindsay Meadows to Cureton Shopping Center. So let's have further discussions about that one. I want to say That Kensington Drive sidewalk is supposed to be the south side instead of the north side. That's the one connecting to the elementary school. The one further down is just for the board's awareness as far as, submitting for future fall calls. We did submit this Kensington MUP sidewalk last year from the Curitan Shopping Center to basically where Lindsay Meadows is. We submitted that last year. It didn't quite meet the mark. I think with just a little bit of an increased local match, we will be able to meet that mark and be able to fund that project to basically tie in a complete streets connection from the Curitan Shopping Center all the way combined with the other project to the school.
Are we thinking north side or south side of Kensington for that one?
It would be the south side. So you have that south side connection. You'll have an MUP on one side and a sidewalk on the other. So you will still have a complete street design.
Yeah.
It's just the more focus on the southern side for that MUP.
And that's from Curitan, you said, to Waxhaw Marvin?
Yes, so that would be that portion of the DA project that we could submit for this fall, which we can provide you more information on, would be from basically Curitan, where our Kensington Drive widening project ends now, picking it up from there, going past the Union County treatment facility, all the way up to Waxhaw Marvin.
And taking into account how you're going to work that around the bridge area there?
Correct. So as a part of that project, we are proposing to implement a pedestrian bridge through the backside, actually have it completely separate from the roadway to help make it safer for those pedestrians. So we will have a fully new pedestrian bridge as a part of that fall call project. And a future trailhead as well.
Just for clarification, because I'm so confused on the sidewalk talk. That little section that's between the school and town hall, there's like that little gap that there's no sidewalk. Are we able to complete that sidewalk?
Yes, we currently have a bid for that it's about around $15,000. We have a $60,000 grant that we have to use for the Safe Streets to Schools, or Safe Paths to Schools. So, and that's going to help. Some of that funds can go help pay for the plans that we already have to improve the intersection or the crosswalks here, and then it should only cost us, that $15. Still got to do a survey, probably another $5,000 for the survey. So we definitely have the funds and we have the plan. So.
Okay, good, because that's one thing that drives me nuts is when we have little gaps in between sidewalks. So, very good, thank you.
I think there's solid agreement on that, Commissioner Westlake.
All right. Well, I'll move on to the next one, which is the Waxhaw Marvin Road Bridge replacement. As a part of that design, DOT gave you a little bit of a sneak peek into that. That's the BP 10.0 R17 project. Those are our proportional share of that project is approximately $200,000. And Joe, if you could just slide us over there to the right just a little bit. Thank you. Our proportional share of that project is $200,000. The reason why is we are proposing a bridge undershelf to connect into the Town Creek Park. So that way, instead of having pedestrians having to cross Waxhaw Marvin there where vehicles are going 45+ miles per hour, they can safely cross to get to the trail underneath the bridge. So DOT is raising that bridge up along with the project, so we'll complete that full trail connection as well.
Correct.
Questions?
Do we know? I hate to ask.
The when?
The when?
Yep. We do. So NCDOT is scheduled to let the contract September 2026. So that is currently the date. So let's say a year and a half from now, they let the project. Completion of the bridge will probably take about, anywhere between 6 to 7 months, likely. So you're talking maybe a 2-year timeline total, 2 to 2.5 year timeline total.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Orion, I'm going to tag team you with these next two, which are the Caldwell Street, South Providence Street, Price Street, and Washington Street. So these two were already on your budget. The request from the engineering department is essentially to bump the schedules up for those. So originally the Caldwell Street was FY28. We're proposing to bump that up to FY27. And, I think Price Street was originally FY '29. We're proposing to bump that up to FY '27 as well. And then maybe Orion can help tag team me this one as far as just a project scope.
So the Caldwell Street, we just did the improvements. That would kind of include improvements to South Broome as well. The Caldwell, we just did on the east side of the road near the barn there, the improvements, the sidewalk and the parking on the east side of Broome. We'd like to include a resurfacing there, and the west side of Broome, and then go down onto Caldwell, widen that, add the sidewalk if possible, but then definitely additional parking. Basically, we own a significant amount of right-of-way. I think 60-foot of right-of-way on Caldwell. We can put in some angled parking and get another 10 to 20 spots, parking spots down there on the south side of Main Street, which is, we're thinking something the board would like. If it's not an interest to the board, then that's up to you guys. But that's kind of a wish for the engineering to move that up, because it's a really not an expensive project to add a lot of parking to the town, and we're always looking for more parking.
Yeah, parking never comes up, so you want to throw in some space is fine.
What was the other, if you move?
The other one was the Price Street extension and Washington Street improvements there. I can add a little bit of additional context with that one. The Old Town Village development is currently connecting Price Street, their development into Price Street. Price Street needs modernization as far as the roadway. It's a very old road and really warrants that modernization improvement, as well as Washington Street, to help manage the roadway infrastructure there. So that was always a project that was listed on your CIP from the previous years. Originally, that was programmed for FY '29. Considering that we're anticipating asphalt prices and oil prices to go down, it would be advantageous to go ahead and get those projects programmed as quickly as possible to take advantage of basically decreased costs.
Hey, James, during one of our previous meetings, we learned about a citizen who's visually impaired in the Curitin neighborhood, and you and I had a conversation about perhaps including some of the special markers and signals and such. And I remember you saying there might be an opportunity where a grant could pay for that, or some funding. Was that included in here?
So I know for the Curitin person specifically, we ordered those supplies. I think we just received them not too long ago. So we got the lights and the audible cue as well to help upgrade those RRFBs. We were going to just do that from our funds to handle that. There are available grants that you could look into, that we could look into and get more information back to you from an ADA standpoint.
Yeah, no, that's outstanding. Yeah, I think the concern was that they're having to get their kids from Curitin to the elementary school safely. So that's outstanding. Thank you.
Yep. All right. I'm going to tag team with Orion on this next one too, which is the pedestrian bridge revitalization project. So Orion is more savvy in this, so I'm going to toss it over to him as far as the updates.
So we do a biennial inspection of the bridge, and this year we threw in, so I guess this year would have been last year, April of 2024, we included the inspection of that bridge with it, and there's been found some damage, not basically wear and tear, the sun beating down on it, the posts aren't completely solid. They're good enough to last us for a while, but so basically the next biennial inspection, we'll get a formal final saying how much time do we have left on this bridge, and then that'll be the big question is how we want to go forward in replacing, revitalizing, and making, our vision would be to make this a larger future project, because this is likely a multi-million-dollar replacement. We're working with CSX, so it's not an easy job, and it's also a historical landmark, so that needs to be some PR with that. So making it more of an event and a historical thing of, hey, the bridge is only going to last us 10 or 15 years. We need to start saving up to replace it. And here's the fund we have for it, and we need to proceed and start saving 50 grand, 100 grand a year to put into that fund. So finally, at the end, when we need to replace the bridge, we have the funds to do it, and then we can do a design contest on how to look at the bridge, and looks like you have a...
Yeah, I just want to say, too, that the bridge is a landmark, so this is something we're going to have to go to HPC with to get certificate of appropriateness for any changes that we make. So like Orion's saying, this is going to be a really big project and something that we'll have a lot of different groups involved on, and making sure that it's historically accurate and maintains that character that we have in the bridge now, so.
So yeah, that's really the guts of it, if you have any questions. So that's where we have it in the budget. I think, so Janet put the 500,000, that would be kind of like the estimate, hey, if we wanted to go and replace it this year, but that's not going to happen. We need to kind of more look at the funding it slowly, if that's a decision you want to make, or else it's going to get us one hit 1 year. We're going to have to pay $2 to $5 million to replace that bridge. And it's going to take a long time with all the other partners we have to work with and working with CSX. CSX delayed the tap at least a year, so maybe 2 or longer. So it was working with them. Even though we own the right-of-way, we have to get the flagging agreements with them, which is very expensive just to work in the right-of-way, and we're going to have to take the old one down and put new ones up and put posts in CSX, essentially their right-of-way, even though we have an easement. But if you're within 50 feet of the railroad, you have to get flaggers, and that adds to the expense, exorbitant amounts, like $900 a day, I believe it was, just for somebody to sit in a truck and watch us across the street to build.
So I guess you're looking at a total replacement.
Correct.
And so between now, I don't know how far out you think that would last.
We'll find that out next year. I mean, we have estimates, but we're thinking 10 to 15 years it'll indeed be
I just
done.
want to clarify on the bridge, though. It can't, because it's a landmark, we have to be really careful on how it is replaced. So
Right.
it cannot, it's going to have to be pieced together so that it maintains its historical structure and integrity. So it's not as easy as like tearing it down and putting something back.
No, of course not. So that I guess was my question, because by the time we have to go through the red tape of who's got to say yes and the paperwork and all of that, I guess we should probably get on it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we'll have to follow. So the Secretary of Interior has standards that we'll have to follow in this. So there's 10 standards that will all have to be taken into consideration when we work on the bridge.
All the more reason, I think, to start saving now.
That's about it on that one.
That's it? All right. Yeah, that one's going to take a lot of partners to come together on that one to really bring along a successful project. The next one, again, is the part 2 of the Helms Road extension, the right-of-way. So I saw that Miss Deborah walked in, so I'm going to outline a few more things that you've all have already heard, just for her ears as well. So the Helms Road extension project is an extension of basically where CSX is doing their P5748 grade separation project. The Helms Road extension is the missing piece of the Waxhaw Parkway West to complete that western bypass connection. From a project programming standpoint, the official award will be granted in March from CRTPO, which will grant the project a STIP, State Transportation Improvement Program number. And from a scoring standpoint, that project scored the highest throughout the entire region, between Mecklenburg's Union County and Iredell counties as well. So from a congestion and safety standpoint, this is a top project priority that is useful for a product advocacy standpoint, because it is a regional facility that helps to provide that traffic congestion relief, those safety improvements, as well as those improved freight mobilities to help navigate with CSX Railroad. In addition, it has received unanimous support from obviously this board, but also from the Union County Board of Commissioners and other town councils as well. So it is a highly supported project for the entire region. Moving on to the next one, which is really part 2 and part 3 of the NC-16 or Broome Street improvements there. Those are just right-of-way and utilities. So you can see that those numbers are split up. Joe, if you don't mind, could you scroll? Thank you. Yep, that's good. Oops. All right, so that 105 number is the estimated cost for the Waxhaw's proportional share. Obviously, the overarching proportional share is much higher once we have those state and federal funds through the CRTPO DA application process. With that said, though, remember that we are also already received payment in lieu. We received $172,000 payment in lieu from the preserve development, and we're anticipated to receive more payment in lieu from the Emerson and Yarborough developments as well. So a good portion of that cost, along with the next item, which is the construction proportional share, the $620,000, could likely be fully covered. It's just depending upon what those payment in lieu estimates come out to be. If not fully covered, then a great significant portion of the project will be covered. Questions on that? Helms Road extension is the construction aspect. We've talked a lot about that. That's where your big majority cost of the project comes from. From the Waxhaw standpoint, our proportional total cost of the project is about $5.7 million. Those $750,000 in design costs that we're fully funding, as well as the additional 4.9 and some change million for construction and right-of-way. So total cost from Waxhaw's proportional share would be approximately $5.7 million. And again, this is a great project to help ask for state advocacy and support there. Moving into the next item, that's just a traditional pedestrian connectivity fund from a greenway and sidewalk project. The town has historically contributed approximately $100,000. That doesn't go that far. With it said, though, as you build up over the years, you can help fund those larger projects for pedestrian and greenway sidewalk connectivities. Questions on that one?
Would that be a good area where we could do those small sections of sidewalks that are all over town?
Yes, so I'm gonna get into that with the next one. Short answer is yes, and what we're asking also for the board to consider is, with our current POW bill, see that next number, that $670,000, that's what we currently get with POW bill. Of that $670,000, $500,000 of that goes to paving and paving maintenance of our roadways. The other $170,000 goes to trees, sidewalks. So we have some additional funds there, equipment, but those funds go rather quick. So what we're asking for is an increase of basically $1 million annually. And of that increase in $1 million annually for the next 5 years, half of that, basically $500,000, would go towards the additional paving operations and maintenance, and the other $500,000 would go to better supporting our pedestrian connectivity funds. Some projects, that have some legacy issues are the Howie Mine sidewalks and Pine Oak sidewalks, for example. We've submitted to DA, CRTPO before. Those projects just don't score that high. So if we want to get those projects done, we're going to have to do them ourselves. And that is a great fund to also help to support, some of those non-POW bill eligible items too. Because with our own money, we can start, obviously doing the POW bill eligible items, but also making the area whole with our contributions too. Some additional aspects while I'm diving into that from the paving standpoint, our Good Roads report showed that $500,000, what we currently contribute, is okay. I mean, will still be good. You'll still have a lot of levels of degradation. With that said, though, considering new developments, that curve of asphalt preservation and asphalt life will eventually shift. So we want to get ahead of that shift by go ahead and contributing an additional $500,000 to paving and $500,000 to those sidewalk projects annually for the next 5 years.
So when you say legacy projects, you just mean ones that have continued to stay on the list for years, is that what you mean? So both of those areas are in older sections of Waxhaw, some lower income. Are there any grants available for those types of neighborhoods?
Yes, and we did submit for grants before. With those particular areas, it just didn't meet the level of competitiveness that it needs to meet for those grants. So if we are going to get those projects done, we have to do it ourselves.
Are those types of projects good candidates for SS4A programs?
It could be, yeah. So as a part of the SS4A program, you know, that range of award, what we've been seeing from the awards given can range anywhere between $2.5 million to about $25 million. So as a part of the Safe Streets Roads for All action plan that we're developing, we can also pull funds from there. Again, those funds are not guaranteed right now until we apply for implementation dollars next year. Essentially, though, if we were to fund these projects now, we could get these projects done.
So in the good roads, we have red roads, yellow roads, and then the green roads. And so our goal is really to get rid of all the red roads. We don't need roads that are at 30% or less. And we do need to get rid of those, and we're hoping that this funds will help it. Also, the additional funds for the sidewalk, we have a lot of sidewalk. We just replaced a long stretch in Curitan for $45,000, and we have other sections like that in town that need to be done. And the current $500,000 that we get from Powell is just not covering it. It's not going to keep us steady, because our roads are gradually going to get worse as they get older, and they're going to get worse faster, and we're going to have more red roads to try to fix. And we want to get ahead of that now. Then we can start revitalizing them, making them last a little longer, so that we can just maintain yellow roads from here on, yellow and green roads from here on out.
Any further information that you all would like at this time on that item? Hearing none, I'll go ahead, and I think that's all of the engineering stuff for now. I think we have a few other items later on in the list, but I will toss it.
I just wanted to say one last thing about for engineering. This is a huge request from engineering, but James, if we were correct, you and I calculated the other about 2.2 million of this is being funded by payments in lieu, fee in lieu. So that cuts it down a little bit. Plus, many of these are just required items that we have to match agreements that we already have. If we decide not to do the Pine Oak, then we lose all that money. We lose all the money that the developer's going to give us. So these are huge requests from engineering, we understand, but some of them were just, I feel we have to do, or else we're going to lose, our relationship with DOT. We're going to lose relationships with developers, and it's just not, things aren't going to go smoothly in the future.
I have one question, because I've had some citizens ask about the stoplight at Rehoboth and 75 as part of the developer project, and that was supposed to originally be done last summer. Then it was pushed to January, and I'm not seeing any movement on that. So
great question. So that is part of the preserve. That's one of their traffic mitigations that they must have installed. I believe they were granted per their agreement up to including their 2 model homes, and up to 25 homes can be granted before that signal comes into place. With the remainder of their homes, however, the 100-plus homes, they will not be granted a CO, a certificate of occupancy, until that improvement is in. So the latest update that we have heard is that they have the plans submitted to DOT, and I believe those plans came back as approved in early January. So now they're working through the permitting process there with DOT to get that signal constructed.
I don't think that that's correct about giving them 25 homes. So if you could check on that, because if I remember correctly, they weren't supposed to get their first CO until that light was in.
I do believe, I can double check for you that and then follow up offline, and we can talk through that a little bit further. But let me go back and double check for you. Any other questions? Nope. Public services. So I am going to help assist with this here as a part of the next item. Todd or Matt, if y'all could come up, is a request for public services to add a crack seal machine. So this is also supportive of our annual maintenance. From a maintenance standpoint and pavement preservation standpoint, crack sealing is really the most cost-effective way to preserve your roadways without having to fully, number one, replace them or mill and overlay. We want to go ahead and invest in this crack seal machine ourselves, bring this more in-house to reduce the costs, and really take this on as a part of our public services department to better provide maintenance to our roadways.
He pretty well covered it. So what we have now are small little push-around buggies and things, and we're just not able to keep up with the ongoing amount of roads that we keep adding. Along with the building boom that we had going on in Waxhaw for many years past, all those roads are getting older, and it is our responsibility with the Public Service Department to try to keep those up. And this crack seal machine would help us do that. We want to implement, as we've been doing with several other things, a tree program, splitting the town up into different zones. This would also be with the crack seal machine. Visiting these different neighborhoods every year is undoable. So we'd split it up into zones. Say we concentrate Millbridge on year 1, which some of those roads are approaching 20 years old. So if we can get a crack seal machine to help preserve those roads and our infrastructure, we feel like that's a very much needed tool. So, and we would visit back around to those different zones every 5 years to touch up, get the most life out of those roads we can. So.
And while you're up there, did you want to talk about the dump truck as well? And then I'll step down because I think that's all from me at the moment.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, the dump truck is, we really needed to pull the leaf axe around. We got a 2006 we're using right now, and we have a 2008, I think. Well, the 2006 broke down 3 times this year. It keeps running hot because it's on the road so much and pulling a load. So what we want to do is replace that with a new one and keep the old one to do small jobs like the Parks and Rec needs it or something. We always have a spare because we're running 2 trucks, and if we have a funeral, we have to shut one of them down to get the dirt where we dig for the funeral. So it would just help us out to have a second one. And we would be taking an 18-year truck off the line. That's starting to get a lot of wear on it. It's good to do small jobs, but it just can't keep pulling. It's like the little caboose that can't keep going.
So the current truck's an 06, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
2006, and the other one's a 2008.
Gotcha.
So to support Matt's statement on the crack seal machine, that goes back to the good roads. Once we have the checkerboard or what they call gator cracking, there's no repairing that. We need to replace the entire roads. If we can get back to fair to great roads, we're going to have a crack every 50 or 100 feet. Public Services is going to go and repair those. The water doesn't get in there on freezing nights. It doesn't destroy the road. The roads last a lot longer. It saves the town a lot of money if we can. It's definitely a benefit in itself just for that crew to be able to repair our roads or maintain our roads before they get bad.
Yeah, like I said, that $80,000 for a crack seal machine, just to put that in a broader view, it probably costs $35,000 to repave a cul-de-sac, and that crack seal machine would serve the whole town, all the roads, 72 miles, eventually one day, just to kind of lay that out there.
And what kind of longevity do you expect out of the crack sealing machine?
I don't know a whole lot about it because we've never had one, but I don't foresee it wearing out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I mean, it's just a simple gas engine, wand. It's a 3-man operation.
Yeah.
So I don't foresee it wearing,
Yeah, Matt's on point there. And then adding on to that, as far as like from a pavement preservation standpoint, with crack sealing, once cracks start to form in your asphalt, water seeps in, freezes, and then the asphalt just gets really worse. So from a paving management standpoint, you could really help to also extend the life of your asphalt by about probably a solid 10 years.
I'll just throw it out there. I'm thankful to the public services as well as our engineering staff for being proactive about the maintenance and upkeep of the roads. For those of us that sort of oversee the budget, it's nice to know that we're investing into things that can actually extend the life of our roads to save us money down the road, pun intended. So thank you very much for doing that and taking the time to think future-wise. Who's next?
So we've got capital vehicles. We were looking at replacing 8 vehicles coming offline this year through Enterprise. Those 8 vehicles have anywhere between 40,000 miles and 60,000 miles currently. So what we're attempting to do now is buy back all 8 of those vehicles for the amount of just over $40,000. So that's going to save us $467,000 by purchasing those vehicles back, keep them on the road as long as we can, as long as the maintenance is good on those vehicles. I know we have a few issues with a couple of the vehicles, but hopefully our well-equipped maintenance guy is going to figure those small problems out, and we can keep those vehicles running. But like I say, it's going to save us $467,000, so that's a big cost savings. Upfit offices for the PD. We have, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the police department. We got the shell space upstairs. We'd want to upfit 2 offices upstairs if we get new personnel this year in order for them to have offices in the PD. And then the meeting place reno, we've put that on hold. I think we all agree on that we're not looking at doing that right now. We need to get some evaluations done on that before we can even see if it's cost effective. And that's all I got. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, Dean, before you get started, one thing I'd like to add. I think the staff's moving towards not leasing vehicles in the future. We have not had a very positive experience with that. If you can buy the 8 vehicles at $40,000, we think that's a good deal, but that also saves you that annual lease payment that you're not having to pay anymore. But our plan moving forward, if we need vehicles, is to actually purchase those vehicles.
And then at the end, you can sell them. So it's probably a good idea to do that.
And the leasing vehicles actually affects public services, Parks and Rec, and Town Hall vehicles as well. So doing that. All righty. So as Mr. Richards said in the beginning, we were all putting all of our information into this spreadsheet, like at a working progress to get it ready for y'all. So some of the areas in Park and Rec I'm going to take off because we comboed them further into the spreadsheet, just to give you a heads up. So the field lighting 1, that was in a previous spreadsheet, so I'm taking that off. And the Town Creek restroom, where it stands, I'm taking that off, but I'm going to show you later on where it's at. With the Learning Center, we are getting the bid openings next week, which is exciting. But we saw that it probably needs some extra funds in that. We won't know exactly until we get the openings, but I wanted to prepare y'all to say we're probably going to need some extra funds to make that whole. Okay? With the renovation of the southern maintenance, that's always been in the master plan of that being the southern hub for our maintenance staff with Parks and Rec and Public Safety and a portion of our emergency management. So we can have resources on both sides of the track. So that with renovation would need to happen this coming up year. And we are finalizing all the quotes so I can give you a better narrowed down information on that, but I wanted to go ahead and put the placeholder in. With the downtown park, the 3rd phase, that is, we're going out for part of, and we talked about that over the summer. We need to put a placeholder in for our match, and that's the $500. So y'all have already kind of agreed for us to go for that grant. If we receive that grant, that's our portion of the $1 million for the whole project. The next 2 areas is Nesbitt Park. This is where I need some direction for y'all. The screens, shades, and net, foul ball netting is $250, and then the field 2 and parking lot lighting is $290. I feel that we don't need to do that all in the same year, but I wanted to give y'all the option of which one you would like to move forward out to like 27, 28. But these are two major things that are on the master plan for Nesbit, and citizens' request for both of those. So this is a major citizen request for Nesbit, but I wanted to get some direction from y'all on if you want to move one project further out, what would you like that to be?
So you're talking about the netting, the soccer, you're talking about the netting that's going to be behind the goals to keep the balls out of the creek? That's what that netting's
So
about?
no, well, that's a portion of it.
That's a portion of it, and then the rest is, of
So
course,
this
the
is
foul ball.
behind baseball field 1. They have foul balls that go into soccer field 6.
Yep.
And this would help do that mitigation of keeping those balls out of the soccer guys. And then also give shade during that corridor. That'll help out with the smaller, like heads up, here's a ball coming kind of thing. So that, again, is been on the list for Nesbit. But we're going down the list of making the park whole. We still have a lot of logistics on each existing park to make them whole, and this is going down that list for Nesbit.
So that line item does not include netting behind the goals for soccer?
So are you talking about on field 6 and 7 so they don't go out in the?
Yeah, keeping the balls out of the creek. I know we added a short fence, so any kind of rolling ball is stopped by a fence. But when the kick goes over the goal and into the creek, we got a lot of kids out there fishing for balls. So I was just curious if that line item included that?
It does not include that. This is only that baseball corridor for the safety issue.
Okay, so this is just the foul balls in the baseball field? Okay.
I'm not familiar with the lighting in the parking lot. What's it like?
We don't
now?
have any.
Well, I would say then let's do the lighting for safety purposes.
I mean, the only lighting, so it gets really dark out there when the field lightings go off. The only lighting we have external of that is around the building. That's on the restrooms themselves.
Right.
That's it. We have, there is 2 night lights from Union Power that are like real far apart, but it gets, when those big lights go off, it is dark.
Yeah, I would say, for safety purposes, the lighting would probably, in my opinion, be a priority.
Okay. And we can pick so this is the value of having y'all in front of me, that we can pick and choose out of if you want a portion of the netting and then a portion of the lights, totally can do that. So like field 2, the ball lights, that can be moved out. And then we focus on the safety of the parking lot. And then also the safety of, heads up, there's a ball.
When it comes to the lighting and the lighting design, are we thinking about big overhead lights or sort of smaller lights? And again, trying to contain the light pollution. And then the follow-up question is, would this be all-night lighting or parks closed, lights out?
So they would be on a timer. The park closes at 10.
Yep.
So we can put the lights around the building stay open because that helps out my PD when they come out and make sure the mischief making is not happening. So we can put them on timers.
Okay.
We have a great lighting plan with our new lights from field 3. Yeah.
Yes, I mean,
Good
I hate to disagree with Commissioner Wedrick because I do think the foul balls are kind of a bigger issue. I think that is more eminent, but the lighting
you can
does
do a
apply
combo.
all around.
You can do a combo.
I like the idea if we can kind of pick and choose where we think the balls are getting it most, start there, and then in parallel kind of add the lighting in strategic locations that might spread the light around the most.
So I can come back at another meeting and say, this is some combination on the safety aspects, and then these are still on the list, but we can just move them out. Would that be agreeable? Sure. Awesome. See?
Thank you.
Solving problems. All right, so then we go down to David G. Barnes and the skate. So that's always been a part of the master plan of the downtown park area. This is a continuation of those phases. The David G. Barnes is an aging playground and park, and so is the skate park. We do have and continually make adjustments with safety concerns. You'll see that the playground has, when there's a safety concern about the unit itself, we take off the safety concern. But there will be a point where we cannot take any more equipment off. And so we need to start planning ahead. And with this master plan of this specific area, that also helps benefit my downtown and helps have continuity with the downtown park. So we are requesting to do the master plan this coming up year, and then consensually after that, do the build. This is a great grant application for the construction. So after we get the master plan, we get all the ducks in a row, and then go out for grant money. Any questions about that? Okay. All right, pavement. So the Public Service Department did a great job this past year and did some crack sealing in our parking lot and on Nesbitt Road going into Nesbitt Parkway going in. But unfortunately, we didn't catch some things in time. The cul-de-sac area has got that alligator cracking, so that's a safety concern, and the road is deteriorating at a fast pace. So again, requesting for phase 1 of the pavement this coming up year to fix the cul-de-sac area up to the crosswalk because it needs to be milled out, and that's like going a foot down. My engineering friends and public service friends can probably be more technical about what needs to happen, but that's something, a safety concern, and to make sure it doesn't get any worse. Technical support.
So from the technical side of things, the alligator cracking in pavement results of one of two causes. The first cause is either the asphalt thickness is not thick enough. In this case, we know that that can't be true because the asphalt thickness is pretty thick in this area. The other cause, the most likely cause, is a subgrade issue, a foundational issue, which we suspect that is the leading cause in this particular case. So to be able to fix that issue, like Dina was saying, we would have to remove the asphalt, go down to the subgrade, and rework the subgrade, and then come back up. That is a little bit more costly. It will help to preserve the longevity in the long run, though.
And this area is also the one that's underwater the most. So it's to be expected. But we also, in future years, we then have the phase 2 and 3 to help us get all the way up to the elementary school. Okay, thank you, James. Alrighty. Then we also have for future year 27, upgrades on cameras and then the road lighting coming in. So that's a future project. The Town Creek restrooms, we pushed that out to 27 because we're trying to actually line that closer up with the bridge replacement because that we don't need to get in their way when they're there replacing the bridge. So that would be a future project for that. We also have some upgrades with the rec barn, with lighting for the parking lot, communications within the 2 buildings. So when there's activities going on, we can actually communicate through a intercom system. Then we also have lots of wonderful new, in lieu of parklands that are coming up as well. So you'll see on this project list new developments that have dedicated park lands. So we need to start planning for those, and those are going to be future out, but we need to start y'all need to know that this is coming up, and I don't want you to be surprised. So these are coming up, because this is kind of the first time that we've actually had this, so it's really cool. Cameras and lighting at Town Creek, that's for a future project. And then court system at the rec barn and shades outside, because it's toasty. Future ask for the rec barn as well is a rock wall, and with the learning center, if we can't fit it into the budget for the upfit right now, then a future ask is for an outdoor classroom. With, again, more in lieu of land coming online, the Prescott Village Greenway system or near Trauma Creek, and then enhancing our athletic equipment. Y'all asked me to put the 34 acres back on the master plan, so just planning ahead on that. That's feature out. Then more neighborhoods coming online. If we needed to purchase land, there's the water. There's a cell tower right beside the rec barn that could be purchased. Future community center. Further down the line for Nesbit to kind of finish out Nesbit being whole would be a playground or a fitness playground, and then shade. This one's I needed to highlight on the suspension bridge. The suspension bridge will be 15 years old in 30, which is amazing, but it's going to need some overhaul, and we need to plan for that, and so you're getting ready. And then again, more segment of the east-west corridor Greenway coming online with Encore. Do y'all have any questions? Ooh, got some spotlights. It's like you're on stage. All right, so I just threw a lot of information at you, but this is with Mr. Richards saying earlier about your 7 that you'd like to see more information on, that you really like to move forward. This would be great direction for us to understand. So if we need to move timelines, we can, and then come back with you with more information. So is there anything that you feel that I need to go ahead and put on my list?
I would just like more information on the Learning Center. I mean, so we've budgeted 900,000?
No, ma'am, we budgeted 5.
5, and you're
Yes,
asking for an
ma'am.
additional 4, so we're talking.
And that's the number I put as a placeholder. I will not know that until next week. Like, I'll have firm numbers for you next week.
I guess I'm just, it's a building that the structure is already there. Now, I know we've done a lot of upkeep for it, and that's a large number, I think. So I'm kind of, any additional information on that would be helpful.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I think what we think's going to happen when you get your bids next week, the actual construction portion of it will be at or above $500,000. And the $500,000 you budgeted was to also cover the actual design of the project. So the $900,000, we just estimated that number. We'll know next week what that actual number should be. So by your February 11th meeting, we should know what the exact cost will be.
And I can put like a spreadsheet together.
We're not reasonably thinking that's going to be another 400 at this point.
Tom, we hope so. Tom, we hope we're high.
I'm very conservative. I'd rather give you the the worst-case scenario, so you're prepared. But we're going to cross fingers and toes. Okay. Any other questions? Concerns? Okay. All right, so next up we have grants that Ms. Susan, do you want to come up? Ms. Robin, want to come up? Calling her friends. Calling her friends. And without some of those projects that we just discussed, we also added it to our wonderful list for Ms. Deborah. So a lot of these can be offset cost with the advocacy list. So, and we're going to talk about that too.
Did we go over any of this? I didn't remember us talking about.
Y'all ready? Okay, go for it.
Hey, thank you. We'll keep this short and sweet. This is more just an overview of the grant program. Melody started a few years ago, and we've just continued. So this is just showing you the Land and Water Fund. Some of these you approved at previous budget or previous board meetings, just an overview and informational. That was awarded. We just this week finally got the contract from that October award. I sent that out this morning for them to finally review. The STRAP grant is awarded as well. You guys approved that recently, a resolution the other day. And that also, that quarterly report was due by Friday. That went out this morning as well. Great Trails grant is still we're waiting for further information, and Robin might have some updates on that.
Nothing yet, but we already presented this, so you all know the information. We're just waiting to hear if we get it. So hopefully we'll hear that sometime early spring. So if we do get that, then we would have that 250 match, just a friendly reminder of that. Carolina Thread Trail grant, same thing. We've done the application. We're waiting to find out whether we get it. So it's actually went to their board. It will be going to their board in January. So hopefully we'll hear something from them, maybe late February, early March. So hopefully we'll have good news on both of those, and then we can move forward with those projects.
And the last two are more placeholders for you. And Joe, if you'd scroll over a little bit, we didn't want to give any sticker shock here. This is in conjunction with James and Orion. The SS4A, if we do go to implementation, and the BRIC grant is Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, and that's for a restoration on 12 Mile Creek. With that BRIC grant, that's a federal grant. That's a big haul. But at this point, we just submitted a letter of interest to the state to see if we even qualify to go forward in that process, so we're waiting to hear back from that. That project cost is estimated at $20 million. Our 25% match would be the 5. So we've just put that in there for awareness and placeholder at this point. Further information will follow, just depending on if we are even approved to go forward in the next few years.
Adding on some more additional information for the SS4A, or the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. That $5 million represents the work. Well, I guess it's the best case scenario, because the town of Waxhaw will be responsible for a 20% match. So the maximum that we can request is up to about $25 million for that project. So the best case scenario would be we match $5 million of that. That's dependent upon how the plan progresses. I know that Commissioners Wedra and Westlake are helping us with that plan, and we're going to progress that plan to have it formally adopted. The goal is September, October of this year, and then apply for those implementation dollars next year. And this is part of the Bipartisan Infrastructure and Jobs Act. You know, there's been a lot of conversation about this at the federal level. I think everything is worked out now, so we are moving forward on that.
I'm on your second item, which was the, STRAP grant. We're also working with FEMA because of the storm damage. We might be able to get some additional funds to do some additional work in that creek.
Yeah,
so.
That is correct. Thank you, Richard.
So that is some exciting news, I think, on my side anyway. So basically, we have access, our own property in front of, or along the creek from Nesbitt Park, the bridge, all the way to 16. Army Corps of Engineers, we're crossing our fingers, has agreed basically to clear out the creek. They're going to look at clearing out the creek for that whole distance. So we got the previous grant for 85 for the whole 5 miles. That wasn't going to get us very far. Hopefully we got a half a mile or a mile done with that 85,000. If the Army Corps comes in, they're going to pay the whole thing from that distance that I mentioned earlier. So then we would only have to worry about Nesbitt down to South Carolina and 16 to the other end of Lawson. And so that 85,000 will get us a little further. So we're kind of excited about that, and we'll keep our fingers crossed on where that goes. So we'll give you more updates on that as it progresses, but we're really hoping that the Army Corps comes through and can clean out the creek for us.
Who's next?
I thought I had it on. We're at 10:50, and our next presentation with Deborah is 11. If you want to take a 10-minute break.
10-minute break? Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And these are your last two brochures, if you remember. And this format works very well. But we had a really tough 2023. Waxhaw did get about $4.75 million for 5 projects. I think we had a total of about 20 in this burgundy brochure. And it's good to have a real mix of them, because you never know what projects are going to hit with your delegation, because that's the first people that I have to talk to is Senator Johnson and Willis, and kind of get their feedback on this. It was a tough go. Even though the House and the Senate in 2023 have the same majority party, they vary very different, even probably among yourselves, on what different budget items are good, what policies they promote. So it was the fall before we got a long session budget in the last biennium, and it was touch and go right to the end, with the Senate sort of threatening to throw it in the trash, and then everyone would have lost everything. But it prevailed, and we were very fortunate. And then they came back for the short session, and we were all hoping that the disagreements of priorities had settled down in the 6-month interim period of time, but they had not. They started fighting again over the priorities, and normally there's a short session budget because there's new revenue to spend. Even though the long session really covers 2 years, there traditionally is a short session budget. And this was a very rare occasion when there was not one. And finally, which is why no cities and counties got their district request in 2024. They did issue about a 20-page bill, and I think that flexibility for some of your sidewalk money or crosswalk money, we did manage to get that in there, which was a very rare mention of a town. There were basically just a handful of hot-button items that they had addressed, real budget catastrophes. One was the Opportunity Scholarships, where they had opened that up to more individuals to apply for scholarships to take their children out of public school. And that was about a $500 million hit of a waiting list of people wanting to access those funds. And the other was some repercussions from Medicaid expansion that finally happened, where they had thought the process had been sort of modified through the COVID era to where there would not be a big hit on the state of North Carolina, but there was a big hit to the state of North Carolina, and they had to dip into the Medicaid reserves for the tune of several $100 million. So they had to address those 2 budget emergencies and some public school money, but that was basically it. It was not a budget. It was just a little 20-page bill. I've been down to Raleigh a lot in January. We have a new biennium starting, new members with the election in November. I'm very gratified to feel a lot of positive feelings down there, that it's a new day. They were sworn in, I believe it was January the 8th, and then they spent about 2 weeks moving furniture around. Everybody got 170 members changing offices. It is a massive operation that the staff down at the General Assembly has to move all that furniture and files and all that kind of thing. And then they came back this Tuesday. There's a lot of ceremonial events. I went to the Senate caucus event Tuesday night. There was a House event. And then traditionally, the Republican Women's Caucus has a very gala breakfast on Wednesday because the long session started at noon yesterday. And bills are already being filed, and they are off. The Senate leadership and committee chairs and staff pretty much remained the same, but there is a big change on the House side, and I think that's where a lot of the positivity is coming from, because when you've got, a new speaker, a new rules chair, a new majority chair, and new committee chairs on the House side, because as you know, former Speaker Tim Moore is now up in D.C. and having a ball. And the new speaker is Dutson Hall. He's a relatively young lawyer from the Hickory area, and he is wonderful. I served with him in the House, and everyone thinks he's going to really reorganize relationships, and so we're very hopeful that the budget process this year will be more streamlined. Each biennium, the chamber that leads off switches. So in 2025, it is the Senate So it'll be Senator Johnson who will be taking the lead that I talked to as far as your district request. They change the process all the time, which makes it very difficult for lobbyists. In the last biennium, they decided not to do the district request early in the process and save it to the end. Well, that's very frustrating because then it's difficult for me to tell you what's happening. So we won't know. With a new speaker, we don't really know what the rules are going to be. But the Senate starts first with a budget, and it's just new spending. They will decide on what they call a spend number. And hopefully the House and the Senate, say they have $2 billion extra money to spend. They'll say, well, this is our spend number. So we're going to figure out all the details on how to spend that money. So the Senate starts first, and they do a money report and a statutory language document. It goes through all their appropriation committees, then the big appropriation committees, then goes to the floor for a vote. It can be amended all along the way. And, I mean, there's hundreds of amendments from both parties to amend the budget. Then it'll go to the floor, pass. Usually it's more kind of party line votes, and it'll go to the House, and 100% of the House members will vote no. They will say it's a horrible budget. That's just traditionally what they do. And then the House starts their process all over. They construct a totally new budget, going through all their appropriation committees, amend it, send it over to the Senate, and the Senate will vote it down, even though they're the same parties. And then Speaker Hall and Senator Berger will form what's called the conferees, which are all the chairs of all the appropriation committees, and they can spend weeks or months discussing every word difference, every number difference, every policy difference in the two budgets and come up with the conference budget, which is not amendable, and then it's an up or down, yes or no vote. And that can be very frustrating. Sometimes they'll take a month off in August if they can't figure it out. So there's no longer sort of a July 1st fiscal deadline anymore because they use the last passed budget as the continuation budget, so government's never shut down. It kind of takes the pressure off for them to meet that deadline, although they always try, but I can't remember in the last dozen years where they've met that deadline. So that's sort of the process that's happening. As I said, going back to these budgets, this has worked really well. If you want to follow a similar format, I think we had more like 20 projects we were asking for in 2023. I think we had 12 last year, although no one got anything, so we didn't get any success on these. And then also, additional documentation is necessary. Starting about 2 years ago, they developed, it was more informal before. You kind of handed people pieces of paper. This is what I want in the budget. And now they have an online portal, and it will be your delegation staff that I work with to upload the requests. It has to go through their offices initially. But there's a place where, say, using the Educational Center, which is a great project for you, and if it comes in with the bid about $1 million, then you ask for the $1 million. But the fact that you're going to have a timely current bid, that works in your favor because they've really clamped down. They want to make sure it's a real project, it's ready to go, they want the details about it, and there's a place for your delegation's office to upload those documents, whether it's a drawing, a schematic, a bid, a letter from your police, if it's a chief, if it's a public safety need. They want documentation because the decision of whether it gets funded or not is up in the hierarchy of the General Assembly. And that's what I do as well, is I go around and talk to the chairs of the committee that are relevant, like if it's transportation or if it's public safety, the chairs of the committee. Then I'll talk to the senior appropriation chairs. I might talk to Jeffrey Elmore, who has just been hired to be the top budget staffer for the Speaker. He's a former House member. I worked with him a lot. I met with him about Waxhaw stuff every time when he was a House Senior Appropriation Chair. Gave him this booklet. If it was a sewer project and I knew the sewer committee was meeting, I'd talk to Dean Arp, but anybody I saw going in that committee, I said, if you hear the name Waxhaw, you remember it. I keep it top of mind. Because the decisions are in the leadership. So A good mix, don't stay on one topic, a good mix, parks and recreation, that's a favorite thing they like to fund. Public safety, equipment. So have a mix of dollar amounts and also topics, because we don't know, what is going to be the theme this year? Where is the money going to be? So you want to be flexible and give them enough choices that when your delegation and I narrow down, okay, these are the 5 out of the 15 projects we're going for, that, there's enough choices. I did mention to the mayor, because I know you got a lot of transportation stuff, and I've been working on that for Waxhaw for a couple of years. I can tell you that is difficult. Now, stuff like sidewalks, street lights, things like that, those are the kind of things you're going to see funded. But it is very difficult to get the General Assembly to build your road. They're going to send you right back to the DOT. Unless, and they've tried to give me guidance, and I work with Jeff about this, you've got to have an angle. It's got to be more about just traffic congestion. That's not going to, they're going to send you back to the DOT. You've got to get on their list and work your way up and get it done. If it had an important economic development angle, that you had a company coming here that was going to provide jobs, but they wouldn't be able to come unless that road was improved or built, or then that would compel them if it was about the economy and about getting people's jobs and that sort of thing. So you have to structure your projects according to an angle that will appeal to them in their role as a in the General Assembly. So you might want to factor that in, and it doesn't mean you can't put transportation projects in here, but you also want to make sure you have plenty of projects in here that they are going to fund, and not just get no's. No, we can't do that. And the way we have done it, and Senator Johnson likes it this way, as in not in order of amounts, but in order of priority. He wants to know your top ask, second, third, fourth. And it doesn't mean, like he went for this school crosswalk as one of the things. That was like number 15, I think, in 2023. But that hit him because he had been to a meeting about it. You don't know what is going to touch them personally, with their individual personalities or interaction with your community. So when I sit down with them and go over every single thing and we talk about it, I don't know what they're going to jump on and go, oh, yeah, I really want to go after that. So give them a big menu, a big variety of options to choose from, and put it in this. And then once I know what hits them, then I can ask Richard, or when you get your permanent town manager, I'm going to need some, they're asking for this additional information because, this is something that they've taken a bite at. And I need to nurture them, and they will have a deadline at some point, not quickly, down the road, where these kind of requests will have to be submitted. So, and I think you just have Willis and Johnson this time. We did have Mark Brody for a while, but I believe he is no longer has part of Waxhaw. So, and Willis and Johnson, they are both great members, and they work very well together because, see, I try to coordinate them, too. I don't want them both going off on a tangent. It helps if they are on board with the same projects as well, so that they're submitting the same projects. And it could be not always. One might decide they really want to go to something else, but they do work very well together. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And anytime any of you ever want to come to Raleigh, because it's a fascinating place, I enjoy being there, and it's very fast-paced, unlike federal government. There's just stuff happening every day. Each House member this time, because I have talked to so many of them the last 2 days at all these events, the House has a 15 bill limit, public bill limit, for their House members. The Senate usually doesn't oppose a limit, but there's 120 House members. Multiply that by 15, and that does not include local bills. You're getting up to 2,000 bills real quick, and the first ones just came out last night. They come out on the House and Senate agendas, so I have to try to quickly scan through all those to see, what's going on. So things happen very quickly down there. The House just released their committee memberships just last night. Like I said, with a new speaker, it's taking him a little little longer to kind of get the ball rolling. And they don't even have committee schedules yet. But the long session lives up to its name. I have even been there in December before. So it's not a quick process. But, you know, there are a lot of unknowns this year with a new speaker. It could be that they can iron out a lot of differences. The more they can iron out early on, then the sooner that you'll get a budget and know what you get. And then also once the budget does come out, I always read it because everybody thinks I'm crazy, but I find it fascinating. I was a county commissioner for 18 years and always did Forsyth County budget, so I'm a numbers person. But to me, it helps me because I found out what other cities and counties got. You know, it gives me an idea of what are they funding. Like, I don't know how many fire trucks Forsyth County has gotten from our delegation. I mean, they're expensive, you know. And also, that's when you see the new pots of grants money. Like in the 2023, I think there was a pot of money for parks, but it was geared toward people with disabilities, either activities for them or access. And I think I sent that to Jeff. You know, if I see this new grant thing that I think would apply to you after the budget's already done, then I send those ideas to your town manager. But also things like even trails is big down there. If you can't get a trails grant, ask for it directly from your delegation. They can bypass the grant process and get it for you. They can also assist you with your grants. You know, if they know you're applying for a grant, let Johnson and Willis know. They want to know. The General Assembly can, other than roads, they don't like to do roads, they can pretty much fund whatever they want. I mean, the members, if it gets approved up through the ladder. So it's, when you read the budget, that's why I like, because it's just all over the map of what people get money for. Of course, sewer and broadband, they've been big. Now, Dean Arp is the go-to person for that. That's who I worked with to get that sewer project that we did. Was it called the Graywater? He has sort of taken over control of what they call the SCIF. The Republicans like to do pay-as-you-go, a lot of pay-as-you-go, so billions are put under his control, and SCIF stands for the State Capital Infrastructure Fund. So if there's something on your list that is in more that area, even though he's not part of your delegation, he's the one that I would go to if, say, you needed additional sewer money or something like that, because he is one of the 3 senior appropriation chairs for the House, and that is under pretty much his control. So you kind of have to know who the players are down there, who's in control of what pots of money. And like I say, you've got a great delegation as the starting point, and then I assist them in making sure that your requests get to the finish line. The only other kind of twist this year is that last biennium, the Senate and the House had veto-proof majorities, so that if the governor vetoed the budget, no problem. They sailed it through, you know, it went right through. The Senate still maintained their veto-proof, but the House is a vote short. So that may cause some complications. Because if, you know, the governor can either sign the budget, let it become law in 10 days without a signature or veto. Traditionally, if the governor has been of the opposite party, they tend to veto the budget. So that can complicate things if they have to negotiate with him, or they'll have to find somebody on the other side of the aisle who is willing to take that step to support the Republican budget. And we've lost a lot of those members on the other side of the aisle in primaries. So it does take an extremely brave person to go against the governor of your own party to override the veto. But we're very early in the game to see how all the emotions and the policy and the dynamics between the new people play out. But I'm always down there. I'm down there at least Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and usually Thursdays. I stay there. I don't commute back and forth. Because I said, you have to be in the building. Stuff happens so fast. And half of my conversations happen in the elevators, at events, at dinners, in the cafeteria, or in the ladies' room, or wherever. Whenever I can catch a member that has something to do with one of my clients, I catch them and I have a 5-minute conversation. And then also, of course, I make appointments. So if the mayor wants to come down later in the spring with your town manager, I'll have appointments lined up. and we'll go around. But often appointments get canceled because caucus is scheduled or committees. So 50% of the time, even if you have a scheduled appointment, that you get there and go, I'm so sorry, the member had to run off and do so-and-so. So to actually be in the building working is a pleasure because you do get those other opportunities and you keep those tight relationships with the people. It is all about relationships down there and who you know and not to get frustrated if you run into a dead end. I do a lot of legislation too. Not all my clients are interested in budget work at all. I work for the pharmacists in North Carolina, and they're running 5 bills. They're not about money. They're about their own personal business money that they're trying to survive because pharmacy's under real attack right now. But you know, some I'm attending committees and I'm shepherding, helping to shepherd through bills and finding the primary sponsors for them or maybe speaking at committees. So it's kind of 50-50 budget work. And again, if you ever have any local bills, I can certainly assist your delegation of helping to get those through committee. And I did a lot as a member myself back home. If a town wanted to change something in a charter or they just needed help with some kind of building code or whatever, your delegation can do that for you too. And they have, you know, they can do unlimited local bills, so there's not a cap on them for that. So that's basically the scenario, and I guess you have maybe some specific projects you want to talk about.
Deborah, we've got a list on the board behind us.
That's hard for me to read.
It's kind of small, but
I may have to walk closer.
My question is this something we need to resolve today, or do we have time?
No, we've got some time. And usually, you know, after this, the board would discuss, you know, the priority you want them in, whether, you know, how many you want to ask for. And then I usually get a draft before it actually goes to print because sometimes we wordsmith it. Like with your educational center, originally it was being promoted as reuse of a library, and I said, don't talk about libraries. I mean, you know, there are certain key words that might resonate with them better. So I would just review it, maybe make a couple edits, and then Jeff would have it go to print and then send me about 24 of these. Because like I say, these go to more than your delegation. Anytime I have a meeting with a staffer or someone, and these work so well because they can't lose them, because I can tell you, they have a stack like a foot high of what looks like white paper on their desk. Like I just talked to Representative Donna White yesterday, and she said she had a request for her to do like 30 bills, and they were just all, you know, I've got one in that stack. And she didn't want to meet with me till she went through and picked her 15 that she was going to do. This is very easy. The staff loves them. They create a little Waxhaw folder, and they put it in there like Johnson. I saw Joey this week. He said, I've got your last folder right here. He says, as soon as you bring me the new one, I'm going to put a copy of here in my folder, and there's going to go a copy in Senator Johnson's folder. So, and other lobbyists, they drool over this. They do, because it's so easy and so concise, and it's colorful, and they can't lose it. And like I say, if you know, I usually get other papers that look like this that go along with it, like the letters maybe from the fire chief or the police chief and things like that. But it's very easy for them. They insert it inside it, you know, and keep all the information that, because they have to keep this for months. Like if we're still dealing with this in October, they're still carrying this thing around. So that works very well. But no, you've got some time. We haven't even had the first, the way they'll kick off the budget process is there are economists that are hired by the General Assembly. They work there full time. Barry Boardman is the lead, and they will have a sort of dog and pony show, and I always like to go to it. It's about the economic health of North Carolina, and they will talk about how the jobs are doing, you know, what sales tax revenues we're projecting, how's the personal income tax. That sets the stage of, well, what kind of money is North Carolina going to have coming in at tax time or throughout the year that will allow them to fund all this stuff. So that's step one. And that will probably be later in February. And like I say, the Senate will start thinking, what are our priorities? Healthcare has been a major priority of the funding because we have a shortage of healthcare personnel. They're building nursing schools. That's been a major theme. I know that's not something you deal with a lot, but the health crisis. And last summer, it came out that North Carolina, and this is a ranking we don't want, we are #1 in the most expensive state in the nation for health care. And that has alarmed the General Assembly to not do anything. The businesses, the North Carolina Chamber is all over it because they don't want their employers to be paying more. And then also with Medicaid expansion, the shortage of everything. Doctors, nurses, particularly in the urban-rural divide that we have. That is a big, big topic down there and a big major policy that they spend money on. So that's one reason I read the budget. When I read the 2023, it was health care from the beginning to end, of where they were building things, offering to pay off loans for doctors who would go medical school loans to rural areas, so you could see that theme and of where are they focusing their spending money. Now, that doesn't mean they don't take care of cities and towns, and because the members like to do things for their community, but it just helps you know where they're focusing their spending. So that will set the stage once they find out, because they're going to lower the personal income tax rate again this year, although I think they have a trigger that if the revenues don't meet it, that might not happen. I think that was something the Senate demanded. But the Senate will get working, and it's usually later on that they'll do the big items first. So school teachers going to get a raise, or big ticket items, and then they'll get down to later. So you've got 2-3 weeks to dwell on it and get your final product, because you want to get it right, and what's important to you to get funded. Like I say, the Education Center, that is a real good project to include, because you're going to have current information, it's ready to go, it's educational focused, it's going to help your community, maybe spin it like people will go in there and get information to maybe help them with job searches, or, you spin it in a way that will appeal for them, to put the money into it. And it's a good reuse for a building you already have. And then, it's my job to get Johnson and Willis excited about it and then make sure it goes through. But that's a prime example of something that could get funded, or maybe additional money for your barn, because the state gave Waxhaw the money to purchase that piece of property anyway. Then maybe they would like to continue to invest in it. So maybe you could pull some of those things that I saw on your list. Maybe some more police equipment. I know I saw talk about vehicles. That sort of thing. That might appeal to them more than a dump truck. I remember having a conversation with a dump truck a couple years ago with Willis. I couldn't sell them on a dump truck. I don't know. But if it's something that kind of has more of a safety use, or something that they feel is a real function of the government, like public safety, then that might help sell that particular equipment better, because we did get some police equipment in 2023. And then sometimes even like in park recreation, there's always a big pot of money for that. So make sure you include, I love working on that. I love working on that. We got a lot of money for your downtown park, and I think I saw some additions to that. That would be a good thing to include, because they've already invested, I think it was $600,000 in 2022 for that stream. I think that's what you spent it on. The water interactive. And we had the delegation come see it. That's always good. Invite them to come see the fruits of what they fought for you, and always be sure to thank them. I mean, I go around all the time telling the members how wonderful they are. They like to hear that, and even sometimes, like I was talking to Senator Berger, I guess it was Tuesday night. We didn't really talk about. It wasn't a time to talk about anything I wanted from him. It's more about, how are you? How do you think things are going to go? Do you just keep those? There's times to talk about what you want from them, and then there's times just to talk to them, and make sure when you do go and ask them for something, that you still have those close relationships. But Parks and Recreation is good, and maybe continuing that theme with some of the other projects that you have for your downtown park, that would be a good ask. And then sometimes, even if there's specifics, they will grant, well, this is park money for your parks, but then you can choose, are you going to go buy the lights for the ballpark, or are you going to go choose to buy the equipment? Sometimes they'll grant it to you in a more broad capacity rather than, and let you pick and choose from those things that you said you wanted. And then trails, too. There's lots of trail grant money. They have been funding the state trails by tens of millions of dollars. But you can also ask for delegation for it as a general fund allocation if you don't want to go through the grant process, as long as your delegation agrees that they want to do that.
So my understanding is that you would need a draft or a final list within the next 2 to 3 weeks?
I'd say the draft, and by the beginning of March to have
The
these
final printed list once you've gone through it back and forth.
It's usually just shipped to my home, and then I carry them down to Raleigh, and then I keep them in the back of my car, and I fill up my bag that I carry into the General Assembly with all the stuff my various clients want people to see, and as I need to have handed out. So.
Okay. And then question for Mr. Hicks. I'm looking at these 5 items that we have listed here on our agenda, and then also the packet that we received that says Town of Waxhaw Projects for State Lobbyist 2025. That list was put together by whom?
That list was put together by staff.
By staff? Okay. And then,
we also need your input also, because we may have missed some things that, that the board may want to see,
so then we will be setting up meeting dates with the board to go through this list or add additional items as we see fit.
We're looking guidance from you if you want to have a special meeting, or if you want it as a topic on your February 11th meeting, we can do it that way, whichever
That's fine.
time you would prefer.
No, we can.
Transportation's off of the table apparently, so your list is shorter maybe, but.
We can talk a little bit more about that. I'll let Deborah review, and then we can add some more context as well to these projects and help better support that angle that Deborah was talking about. Is it all right if we have a few words?
No.
So, do you want to ask your question? Or?
No.
Okay.
So it sounded like, a lot of these projects, as far as transportation-wise, we need to have other angles with them, more than just the congestion component. And we do. So maybe that's just something that the board can help guide staff as far as fine-tuning that language a little bit better. So, for example, some of the transportation projects that we're looking into, number one was our Helms Road Extension project. That's a regional facility for traffic congestion relief, safety improvements. It also helps to improve that freight mobility and to provide a better connection to economic development opportunities along that corridor. So as far as those separate angles, perhaps the board can help guide staff on how you would like us to word that and fine-tune things. Another thing with the Helms Road is that it ranks the highest project throughout this particular region. And it has support from not just Waxhaw, but also support from Union County and other councils as well. The other one that we had on the list was the Waxhaw Parkway East project. That is the connection from 16 to Waxhaw Indian Trail. That would also be a regional facility that would help to promote economic development, specifically the travel and tourism industry. So that's just something that we added as well, in addition to providing the regional traffic congestion relief, safety improvements for emergency services, and improved freight mobility as well. So those are some other things we were looking into. As far as Pine Oak, we have recorded fatalities there at that intersection. From a safety standpoint, that is critical for the town to go ahead and get completed now. because we are proposing to realign that intersection and also connect to a neighborhood center hub that's in the development as we speak now, which is also connections to economic development too. The Hillcrest roadway, we can fine tune that a little bit more for the sidewalk emphasis. That's really the modernization of our roadway infrastructure to help provide increased connectivity to our downtown economic center and our downtown regional park facilities. And that ties in with the downtown Waxhaw improvement. So there's angles for each of these. If the board could direct staff on how to proceed with a certain priority list, we can fine tune this to meet your needs as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I did have a question. A project that seems to not make the mark often is the Howie Mine sidewalk project, which is on the same side of town as the Learning Center. So I'm wondering if that would give it some weight.
Sidewalks are often funded, and also anything that is what they sort of consider Main Street. You know, a lot of downtowns are kind of, well, not disintegrating, but, you know, people are flowing out from them. There is a push down there if there's anything that's kind of related to maintaining. Of course, I think that's why your downtown park was popular, of maintaining people coming and using and having a thriving downtown. That's something that often catches the attention of funding. And I've seen stoplights being funded, but that's very different than, even though stoplights are expensive, I think they're still around, what, 700,000 or something? I mean, because don't they have to put the stuff under the street? And the cost of a stoplight, how much is that?
It ranges between, depends upon the complexity, about $500,000 to, it could be in the millions.
Yeah, well, I was thinking 750, so that's right in the middle. Now, that's something, if you need a stoplight, that's something. It's when they're doing major road construction that they want the DOT to be the ones that it goes through their system, you know, their little scoring and all that, and they have had to really subsidize the funding of the DOT. Back when I was still there in 2020, I remember DOT was in a major problem. They had not evaluated the cost of bidding anything. They weren't paying their private contractors. It was an economic mess. And so instead of just the DOT getting their normal funding, they had to start really shoving some extra funds. So they expect the DOT to handle, you know, we do have transportation committees, and I'm happy to bring any of you down there to talk to Jeff McNeely and the others, and that really focus on transportation, which Willis and Johnson do not. You know, Willis loves education, and Johnson has different interests. A lot of members really focus in on certain topics, because that's why they ran in the first place. You know, they want to improve education, or they want reg reform. They're into building, and they're contractors. You've got all kinds of different professions down there, because everybody has to have a job at home, because it only pays about $14,000 a year to be in the General Assemblies, which a lot of people don't know. So all these people have their day job, I mean, night jobs or weekend jobs that pay their bills, but they usually come there with a passion. It's not for the money. You know, they come there because they really want to improve education, or they're very into commerce and economic development, or something. And there's also, we have people who own, like Brendan Jones, the new majority leader. He's a car dealership guy, and he's really into transportation. You know, so they have that kind of focus often from their private lives. But it is, as I said, and if you can come up with those. You know, economic development's the only thing that's going to, or safety, like a traffic light or a school crosswalk or sidewalks that get people out of the way of traffic. But unless it's going to bring in a tax base or jobs or something else, in addition to the fact that you're putting paving on the road, that's the only thing that's going to get their attention to make them go outside of the box. And they kind of got away from, because it used to be roads were funded by the General Assembly by how powerful the politician was. It wasn't on, and I'm going back like 20 years ago, it was not need, it wasn't congestion, it wasn't anything. It was somebody who was very powerful, and they wanted to spend beaucoup of money for a road, in their district. And that's why the General Assembly has backed off, so that's not political. It's actually based on the criteria of the DOT and not because it's a speaker wanting, 50 million spent on something. And that's why you often see roads where in certain sections it's 3 lanes and then it goes down to 2 because the politician had their section. So that's why the General Assembly has really backed off, allowing individuals to decide where money is going for roads because it just wasn't exactly ethical, or in a way, it was more on political power rather than truly on need. And so that's why they like to shove it back to the DOT now. And unless there is some other really compelling reason that would benefit the area or the state far beyond just the fact that there's traffic concerns. And that's the only time that they will really step in. But the smaller stuff you can try to go after, like that's still expensive, like stoplights and sidewalks and other things like that. And we can certainly have dialogue with them on anything that you want me to have dialogue on. So.
James mentioned the Helms Road extension, which is already scoring very highly with DOT, but if there's any way to push it forward even, so we could get it even earlier than 5 years from now, that would be great. And it is tied to economic corridors, so maybe an economic argument could be made for that.
One thing I would suggest, because as county commissioner, I had to deal with the DOT, and believe me, that was my least favorite thing to do as a county commissioner. And I had to deal with them for 8 years because there was a beltway that was never built in Forsyth County, and I had angry homeowners whose land had been tied up by the MAP Act. And in fact, it took me about 5 years, but I was the person that got rid of the MAP Act. That was my bill, the repeal of the MAP Act, where they can file a map and your property is tied up for, makes it difficult to sell. Nobody wants to buy it. You can't make improvements. Is the one people they will listen to is the Board of Transportation. You're in a district, transportation district. Get to know your board member. They're appointed by the governor. Because in my experience, I didn't go to my legislators when I was county commissioner. I went to my member of the transportation board because they're appointed by the governor, and they seem to be the only people the DOT is slightly afraid of. They're not afraid of legislators, I could tell you, because I sat in rooms with their lawyers all the time yelling at me because I was trying to get $700 million for the property owners, because there was a big court case on that. Y'all probably weren't following it. But the DOT wasn't wanting to pay back interest. They were wanting to screw over the landowners in Forsyth County. So, I was in there with senators and House members, and they could care less what we thought. But get to know who that person is, and I don't know if Stein is appointing new people, but get to know that Board of Transportation member, and I'm happy to come down here and meet him with him. But he's the one that can really help you pull strings, because I don't know how many districts there are. You know what district you're in? It's divided up. That person can help you more than I can, and help you more than Johnson can, and help you more than Willis can, because, they're powerful people appointed by the governor. And that, if I wanted something done for a business because a road had screwed up the entrance to their, we're hurting the business because of something they've done, or a church called and said they've torn up our whole front lawn, what do we do? It wasn't the General Assembly that helped me. We had a good board member, and I knew him personally, and he's the one that would call down there and crack the whip and get it done. It was not the General Assembly. So that's where the power is. And I would advise you to know that person as well as you can. And like I say, I'm happy to either meet with them there. Of course, they usually live in the area. Within the district. So, and they're political appointees. But those are the ones that have the power. And I would suggest getting to know that person very well, and I'm certainly happy to. I've had to deal with them when I was elected official, so I'm certainly happy to be in the loop. But like I say, that's where you're going to get some action, is from that person.
Have you heard any rumblings about the SB 382 prohibition on downzoning?
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
Have you?
That was snuck in the No one knew about it. It was just, as much happens, not everything is kind of done above board. Like I say, when they get to the conference budget, it's all behind closed doors, and no lobbyist knows what's going on. But it just suddenly appeared in there. There were a couple bills filed last night in regards to that, and your town manager has those if he wants to share those with you later, of reversing that. One was geared primarily, it was Senate Bill 27, and it only geared to the eastern part of the state. There were 10 counties. Other counties may be asked to join, but if I remember correctly, it used to be there was a limit. You couldn't keep adding county names, or you might as well do a statewide bill. But that was Senator Hannig, who's from the coastal area. That's Senate Bill 27. And I can't remember the House bill number. That was filed for all 100 counties last night.
That was SB 100, sorry, Deborah? That was SB 100, you said?
Yeah, I'll have to go back and get it.
It was House Bill 10020.
Well, I understood, talked to Representative Willis some time ago that the phone was ringing off the hook. I don't know how, you're a member of the League of Municipalities, right? I don't get much communication from them.
I'm on a legislative and policy committee.
So if you could make sure they put me on their mailing list. Occasionally I got something, but they're also supposed to track all this stuff and alert me for things that I don't see. But yeah, it was House Bill 24, Representative Adams. I think there were some other primaries on there. But this is up for first reading today. Both of them are in House session. First reading is just the clerk. The clerk stands up and acknowledges that the bill was filed. Once and that's called first reading. And then it will go to the Speaker's staff and Senator Berger for Hannig's bill, and they assign it to committees. They're the traffic directors of where it's going to go. And then once it goes to those committees, it's in the hands of the chairman of that committee. So I don't know where this is going yet. And of course, whatever your reaction is to these bills as they're filed, you just have to let me know, and I will track them for you.
You said there were 2 filed. What was the number of the second one? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
I doubt if the 2 parties, because the House and Senate don't necessarily communicate about bills. So Senator Hannig probably had no idea that Representative Adams was filing his bill. And because when you're a senator, only Senate bills come up on your dashboard. They have a member dashboard. Like once there's first reading, the member can, and they should, if they want to know what's going on, pull up their dashboard. And it'll say, these are all the bills for first reading. You have 48 hours to look at them and decide whether you want to be a co-sponsor. The names on the bills are called primary sponsors. In the House, the first name is the person that came up with the idea, sent the bill to bill drafting, and filed it. If there's other members' names, those are other members they have asked to join them as their primary. And you always want strong primaries with you. And those are the people that would go with you committee to present it. But all the rest of the members have the opportunity to say, oh, I like this bill. I'm going to check it, and I'm a co-sponsor. But it's very time limited, the window of opportunity that they have to do that. So, if Willis checks his dashboard over the next 2 or 3 days, he will see this bill. He was not one of the primaries. And he will choose whether or not, and if you wish to make your opinions to him on it, then let him know over the weekend. But don't tell him I told you to call him. And then the same thing with the other bill. Right now I said it's which was a little bit longer because it actually spells out the counties that Hannig, but this bill could change. He could do what's called a proposed committee substitute. Say he has 20 members saying, I want my county in there, 20 other senators. Then before it goes to committee, he would have the committee staff strip this language and maybe mirror this bill. we won't see it publicly until the committee actually votes to accept that he has done that. But it could be that he changes his bill. And it could be neither one of these bills are ever even heard in committee. I mean, a very small percentage of bills actually make it to committee or to the finish line. Often the committees are run and the committee chairs decide, sometimes it has to be unanimous, that every chair has to agree to hear a bill. Now, I preferred to run, if I was chairs, if there were 3 chairs and 2 wanted to hear it and 1 didn't, we heard it. You know. But not all committees are run that way. Sometimes they choose that every chairman wants to hear it, which really blocks a lot of bills. Because just 1 out of 7 chairmen could be mad, and that kills the bill right there. So you got to track all that too. And then often when your bills get to committee, I will do whip counts. Like if I'm doing major legislation, how are the committee members dividing up on this? You know, what are the obstacles? How are they going to change it? But I'm happy to track these bills for you, but please give me feedback on, and to also Johnson and Willis on. And if I see any more, I will send them, it was probably about 6 o'clock last night. They popped up, because I have to, it's a 24/7 job. I'm getting these emails, and the agendas only come out at night. And so it's usually after dinner before I know what bills have been filed that day and are going to have first reading. So I got to do that at night and scan through there. And I sent him, there was actually one, 11 too, the title was wrong. Senate Bill 11, they had put a wrong title on it, and that's why Hannah had to go back and file it again. So the actual bill is 27, not 11. So, because the title is very important, but somebody in bill drafting, or they didn't scrub it to notice the title was wrong. But it's Senate Bill 27 and then the House bill. And there may be others. So we'll keep an eye on it. And then also, the League of Municipalities has their own government affairs people. They're supposed to be in the building, and I'm not even sure who they are anymore. I was very close friends with Paul Myers when he was head of that organization. They should be tracking all this stuff too and be in the building and in the committees to speak out for and against bills for you. I don't see them a whole lot, but you might light a fire under them and tell them they need to get over there. If you're for or against, that's your prerogative.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deborah. That was a lot of information, as usual. You are a wealth of information, so thank you again.
Well, politics is my passion, so.
Clearly.
I did want to say with the project advocacy list, this was a list that Dina and James created, and I think there's some opportunity to bring in a couple of other departments to help with some of that wording, especially on the economic development side. So I think there's opportunity to bring together your business development department, planning, as well as comms, to make sure we've got kind of our wording for you guys, and then we can come back with that full list.
Okay, Mayor, if it's agreeable with the board, we will bring this list back to you at the February 11th meeting, and we'll go through at that meeting and hopefully can agree on which ones to submit and the.
That sounds good. One thing to add too is, can we carry over the last year's projects, at least just have those on the list so we can determine whether or not we want to continue to push for them or drop them or deprioritize them?
So just have like a bigger comprehensive list of
Yeah, just last year's and then the new stuff.
Okay. Can I make a compromise that on the 11th that it would be like a draft, because we're all working on it? It's a really big, heavy lift for us, because we're going to switch gears to make sure that we, with guidance from Ms. Deborah, that we are connecting all the pieces. And that would just make my heart calm down a little bit, that we have a little more time.
No, we want a final list from you, Dina.
Come on now, Ms. Brenda.
Once and for all.
Come on, what do I got to bake you? Come on.
I do think it's reasonable for us to have a pretty good list with pretty solid descriptions by the 11th. And then obviously comms is going to take this and make it all look beautiful. And we've got our deadline of, you said March for that, right?
So what's the target number we're looking for on, did we say 12 or 15 or?
That's your choice. One year we had 10, last year was 12. I mean,
So 10 or 12,
No more than 15.
no more than 15.
I mean, 15 for a long session would be to me, particularly if you're going to load up a lot of transportation that could potentially be rejected. You want to make sure there's a lot of other choices.
A breadth of choices,
A
yes.
balance.
And variety, parks, downtown, infrastructure, sidewalks, equipment, public safety, have a variety. And you know, varying price sports, you can have some for millions and some for 250,000. I mean, they have a variety of choices, but put them in the order
Of priority.
Rack and stack.
I think I would like to ask, and I think all board members would agree, that it'd be nice to see what you have today. So we can start noodling it as well.
Maybe
And
tomorrow?
exactly, it's in the
Maybe
packet.
Yeah, it's in the packet.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's that spreadsheet that you guys see up on your screen.
It's what you
Just want to
have
make sure
is
we
what-
had it already.
But with the guidance that Ms. Deborah just gave us, now we're going to connect all the dots so you can see the economic impact, the safety impact of especially with the roads concerning, I can connect that with Park and Rec, and then Ms. Ashley can connect it with downtown. So a lot of these things, again, we had our CIP list, we took off the projects that would look good to go on to advocacy list on this list from the CIP. So these are already projects that are needed for Waxhaw. We're just trying to figure out a different angle of paying for them.
Exactly.
So there are 5 bullet point on the items on the agenda. Was there any significance to that? Or was those just examples, or?
So those were projects that we discussed at our department head prep meeting last week. So these are just projects that aren't necessarily on the CIP, but we still thought could be good concepts for lobbyist projects. So things like Parkway East, obviously we know that's a long-term, huge project. The Sprinter van and upfit cost is something that PD was requesting. Obviously, dog park and trail connections, the parkland acquisition, and then the Howie Mine sidewalk are things that aren't necessarily on your CIP, but we still wanted to make sure we included them for our own mental processes. So they're just notes for us ultimately. Yeah.
But this goes back to what y'all would like to see push forward at a faster pace, because Miss Deborah rocks and she's going to get us some money. Hint, hint. Any other questions? Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. That was great.
Mayor, lunch is here, and it looks like we're right on time. If you want to come back a little early, we have an hour for lunch. If you want to cut that to 30 minutes or 45 minutes, or if you want the whole hour, is fine.
No, I gotta go.
I'm hearing a request for the full hour. We have a full request for the full hour, so we'll go ahead and do the full hour.